Chapter 1194. Are you crazy? How dare you touch that person? Do you still want this hand? But I heard that he never gets close to women. Even when the eldest young miss tried to get close to him, she was humiliated and angered. Now that we've sent this woman over, can that person really appease his anger? If that person doesn't want her, how about we enjoy her for ourselves? Mine's head became more and more dizzy. Finally, she could no longer hear, could not hear clearly, and completely fell into a coma. When she wakes up again, Mine only feels that her whole body is hot and uncomfortable. She forced her eyes open and looked around, only to find that she was in an unfamiliar room. His body was tied up with ropes. The blood in his body felt like it was being burned, and waves of heat surged up. This was clearly the state of being drugged. Damn, it's this kind of despicable method again. Could it be that this is a special hobby of the people of the cultivation continent? If she knew who had done this to her this time, she would definitely break the roots of those scum's descendants. Mu Yin tries to use her spiritual power, but finds that the spiritual power in her body is completely sealed, and she can't move it. Her eyes turn cold, and the profound qi in her dantian surged. With a snap, the rope on his body snapped. Fortunately, the person who bound her probably thought that as long as her spiritual power was sealed, she would be powerless. Therefore, the rope used was the most ordinary one, and not a spirit artifact like the immortal binding lock. But what gives Mu Yin the most headache isn't the rope, but the effects of the medicine in her body that makes her blush, her heart beat faster, and her blood boil. Although the effect of this medicine was not as good as the yin yang sha, there was no way to solve it at the moment. In particular, at this moment, she is completely unable to use the spiritual power within her body, which is equivalent to most of her Shan musician skills being locked up. Mu Yin propped up her sore and weak body and walked towards the door. She planned to leave this place first, and then make subsequent plans. However, she still underestimated the medicine in her body. It was just a simple action, but the already boiling blood in his body seemed to instantly boil. Her skin was boiling red. His hands unconsciously tore at the clothes on his body, wishing that he could completely immerse himself in the icy water. Mine's eyes are blurred, and she's gasping for breath. She stumbled towards the door, but her legs were getting weaker and weaker. In this state, even if she left the room, it would be extremely difficult for her to escape. Just then, Mu Yin hears the sound of approaching footsteps outside the door. Throw him out. If there's a next time, don't ever come out again. I'm being wrongly accused. What does this have to do with me? It's obviously the group of people from Silver Plume Palace. Cough, yes, yes. The door to the room was pushed open, and a figure walked into the room and looked around, revealing a surprised expression. And where is he? Could it be that the bunch of bastards from the Silver Plume Palace have already gotten rid of everyone? Mu Yin hides high up on the beam of the room, looking down at the people coming in. She uses all her strength to restrain her breathing and aura. However, her eyes had already been burned into a blur, and she couldn't clearly see the appearance of the person who came in. Those voices were also incomparably distant from her. Waiting for the man to leave, Mu Yin is about to jump down from the beam. Suddenly, the door was pushed open again. A familiar yet distant aura assaulted his senses. Chapter 1195. Come out! There's a loud shout, accompanied by a strong gust of wind, as it attacks the beam. Mine promptly leaps up, single-handedly grabbing the hanging gauze curtain from the roof, and attacks the incoming person. The internal force within her body revolves wildly. She doesn't want to subdue the enemy with this blow. She only hopes to borrow the rebound force to break open the window and seek a slim chance of survival. However, when Mine's foot kicks out, she doesn't receive the expected attack. Instead, her ankle is suddenly buckled. The clothes on Mine's body have long been changed thin and sexy. The shoes and socks on her feet have long been removed, leaving only the white and slender feet, as if carved from nephrite. At this time, that delicate and warm ankle is grasped in the palm of a wide hand. The thin and rough cocoon cuts across the delicate porcelain-like skin, bringing with it a burst of numbness. Mine can't hide the effects of the drug in her body, and right now, it's like she's being roasted on a fire. She can't help but let out a low moan. Then, she hears the man's heavy breathing and a somewhat vague low cry. The hand that was originally ice-cold holding her ankle becomes hot little by little. His thumb seems to be flirting and caressing, gently caressing the delicate skin of her instep. Sure enough, he's a pervert. Mine's heart is filled with shame and indignation. The strength of her hand ripping the gauze suddenly increases, and she leaps up again. Her other foot kicks the man. At the same time, her hand grasps a candlestick in the corner. The long object in her hand is like a sword in the palm. The results of Luo Yunxiao's several months of teaching her swordsmanship are instantly revealed. The tip of the candlestick in her hand is swaying like a sword shadow and blooming like a lotus. There's clearly no spiritual power attached to it. But if an ordinary person were to face this biting, cold, murderous intent, they would certainly be dazzled and satisfied. However, just as the candlestick in Mine's hand thrusts over her wrist is accurately buckled, then there's a tearing sound. The cloth curtain is torn and pulled down, covering the two people who are entangled together. Mine struggles to pull away the tangled gauze curtain, but her two wrists are suddenly buckled on the floor, and her body is heavily pressed to the ground. Let go! Ah! A fiery kiss seized her lips, stealing her breath. The familiar aura, familiar pampering, and familiar trust and yearning were like surging tidewater that instantly drowned all her thoughts, and even the scorching medicinal effect was covered up. Muyin suddenly widens her eyes. His burning red eyes slowly regained their focus and clarity. She saw his handsome face right in front of her. She had the bearing of a dragon and the bearing of a phoenix. Those icy blue eyes, those sharp and chiseled facial features, that quiet and cold aura. Everything was so familiar to her, and she missed him so much. His longing was so deep that once it came out, it would surge violently, and he could no longer suppress it. The man released her lips and stared at her with bloodshot eyes. His voice is unbelievably hoarse. Yin, this time, has your answer changed? In response to him, Muyin suddenly flips over and presses the man under her body. The girl's breath is scorching, her cheeks are flushed, and her blurry peach blossom eyes seem to be rippling with rippling ripples. Just being looked at by those eyes, Di Mingju's breathing suddenly becomes heavier, and all the blood in his body rushes to a certain place. Chapter 1196. Di Mingju's eyes turn cold. A thick, murderous intent flashes across his face. He also wants to know who would be so audacious as to dare lay their hands on his yin-yin. But the next moment, the girl's soft fingers tug at his lapel, caressing his chest like she's flirting. She gently hooks up his chin, but all of his killing intent instantly disappears without a trace, leaving only an unbearable yearning that's about to erupt. But who told you to be my man? Mine smiles devilishly, pulling off his belt. I can't break your offspring, so I can only treat you as an antidote and wipe it clean. Di Mingju couldn't bear it anymore. He abruptly turns over and presses the girl under his body, gently sucking on her translucent earlobe. A husky voice with an overflowing yearning echoes in Mayan's ear. To be able to be Yin-Yin's antidote, this husband would gladly endure it as sweet as syrup. Outside the door, Han Yi frowns, looking inside from time to time, his eyes filled with deep worry. But in the beginning, he could still hear the sounds of fighting coming from inside. But later on, all the sounds disappear without a trace. It's very clear that Junshang has soundproofed the entire room. What's going on inside? What makes Han Yi even more uneasy is that, in the beginning, he seems to have heard an ambiguous voice that makes people blush and their hearts beat faster. According to Junshang's character, he should have thrown the woman out long ago. But now that several hours have passed and the sky is gradually brightening, there's still no movement in the room. Han Yi, Darren. Just then, a middle-aged man dressed in Inu Palace's attire comes forward, his face full of respect. Seeing that Han Ye's gaze is looking into the room from time to time, the middle-aged man says excitedly, "Last night, my Inu Palace sent a stunning woman. I wonder if Di Jun is satisfied." Han Ye's face shows disgust, Don't do these boring things again. Jun Shang has never been close to women. If you repeatedly challenge his bottom line, the consequences will not be what you can imagine. The middle-aged man immediately shows a fearful expression. But before he could speak, a cold male voice comes from not far away. I feel that the Lord should be quite satisfied with the lady that the Silver Plume Palace has sent over. Han Yi turns his head to look and sees Xing Lang striding over, a complacent look on his face. He frowned, his voice cold. Star Wolf, what do you mean? Have you forgotten Jun Shang's orders? Acting on your own, aren't you afraid that His Majesty will punish you? Heh, I didn't do anything wrong. Why does the Lord want to punish me? Xing Lang raises his eyebrows, a proud expression between his brows. The people chosen by the Silver Feather Palace, even if they're just servants and concubines from the Xiuzhen continent, they're still much better than the mortals from the Yanwu continent. At least, they know how to be well-behaved and obedient, and won't let Jun Shang fall into danger time and time again. Han Ye's complexion suddenly sinks. Xing Lang, you don't understand Miss Jun at all. What right do you have to slander her? Jun Shang had long said that he only likes Miss Jun. He absolutely won't accept other colors. You'd better give up on this idea. Xing Lang laughed mockingly. Han Yi, if Jun Shang really didn't like the beauties sent by Silver Feather Palace, you wouldn't have stood at the door for an entire night, going around in circles. Chapter 1197. I had thought that our Silver Plume Palace's first young mistress would be able to gain the Emperor's favor. Who would have known that she had angered the Emperor instead? Just as we were wondering how to make up for it, we unintentionally saw a portrait in the Emperor's hands. The people of the Tao tribe discovered a beauty that looked very similar to the woman in the portrait. We tried our best to get her here. This is all thanks to the rosemary fragrance that Lord Star Wolf gave me. If I wasted more effort and let that girl know what kind of person she has climbed up to, I'm afraid that she would continue to pester me and try to climb up the dragon and the phoenix. Han Ye's complexion becomes increasingly unsightly. He recalled that when he entered the house just now, he seemed to have smelled the faint scent of rosemary. At that time, he thought it was an illusion, but he didn't expect it to be. In that case, the woman was really in the room. And Jun Shang also. But how could this be? If Jun Shang favors another woman, what will happen to Miss Jun? With Miss Jun's unyielding temperament, if she knew that Jun Shang had another woman, how could she still be willing to marry Jun Shang? At that time, little Ing would be so sad and furious when she found out. When Xing Lang heard this, he patted the middle-aged man's shoulder and laughed heartily. For a woman like that, to be favored by the Lord is already her greatest honor. She doesn't need to know anything else, lest she thinks too much. Elder Ji, you've done well. Jun Shang, and I will remember your contributions. Ji Jiping was overjoyed when he heard this. In the Silver Plume Palace, he and Hua Xiangrong's father, Hua Zhongbai, were both elders and vice palace masters. The Silver Feather Palace lord was old, but his cultivation had reached its limit and was unable to break through. His lifespan might not be long. Next, the person who could ascend to the position of palace lord would probably be between him and Hua Zhongbai. This time, when the emperor came to the cultivation continent, the two of them tried their best to curry favor with him, hoping to stabilize their position as palace lord by pleasing the emperor. Hua Zhongbai, that shameless fellow, in order to curry favor with the monarch, he actually sent his daughter to seduce the monarch. Fortunately, the emperor didn't like Hua Xiangrong at all. That was why he was given this opportunity. Ji Jiping couldn't help but be overjoyed at the thought of the beauty he had presented to the emperor. The position of Silver Feather Palace master would most likely belong to him. Han Yi ruthlessly punches the wall, gnashing his teeth in hatred. At this moment, the door to the room opened. Di Mingju's tall figure slowly walks out. On his usually cold and arrogant face, there was a rare trace of contentment and tenderness. Just looking at Jun Shang's expression, Han Ye's heart sinks a little. Di Mingju frowns as he sees the few people standing at the door. Star Wolf and Ji Jiping hurriedly kneel down. Greetings, Lord/Emperor. Han Ye's body stiffens for a long time before he slowly kneels down, but he doesn't say anything. Ming-ju doesn't ask them what they're doing at the door, but opens his mouth heavily. "Where's Mei?" Starwolf didn't say anything because he didn't know where Mei was. Instead, he turns his gaze towards Han Yi. It's just that Han Ye's complexion becomes increasingly unsightly. "I don't know. What business does Jun Shang have with Mei?" Ming-ju says faintly. "Tell her to come and guard." Chapter 1198. As soon as Han Yi thinks of Mei's grief and anger after knowing that Jun Shang has fallen in love with someone else, he can't control his emotions. Ming-ju raises his eyebrows, his eyes slightly narrowing. However, without waiting for him to speak, a languid voice comes from inside the room. "Han Yi, haven't seen you for a few months. Have your guts grown fat? Littling, do you really not want to see me?" As soon as this voice is heard, Han Yi looks up in disbelief. A woman with shoulder-length hair, dressed in a white dress, slowly walked out of the house. The sunlight shone on her delicate skin, making her look even more beautiful and otherworldly. Han Ye's eyes suddenly go wide, his mouth gaping open, and he loudly mumbles, "June? June? Miss June?" But he's unable to say a complete sentence. However, before he could regain his rationality, Ming-ju has already turned around in anger, wrapping his clothes around the woman's body. Without waiting for anyone to protest, he carried him horizontally and walked into the house. Ming-ju, what are you doing?" Mu Yen is furious. With a cold expression, Ming-ju closes the door with a bang, cutting off Han Yi and Xing Lang's line of sight. "Who allowed you to come out dressed like this?" Mu Yen looks down at the translucent clothes on her body and says with a smile that isn't a smile, "What's wrong with these clothes? I think it's pretty good. It was your people who put it on for me in order to present me to you." Ming-ju's complexion turns even darker. He directly throws the person on the bed, pulling the quilt and wrapping her up tightly. Mu Yen struggles, but she can't break free. She rolls her eyes, pulls Ming-ju's collar, and her soft cherry lips are reflected on his. Ming-ju's hand that was shackling him immediately loosens, and he reaches out to pull the person into his embrace. The kiss was deep and passionate. Chi's heart was stirred. But just as Ming-ju is about to push her down on the bed and execute her on the spot, Mayan flips over and breaks free, a sly smile appearing on her face. "Ming-ju, I'm hungry." Ming-ju's eyes are slightly red, and he reaches out to pull her into his arms. "Yin, I'm hungry too." That pair of devouring eyes seem to be itching to swallow her skin and bones. Mu Yen swallows her saliva. He suddenly remembered last night. In the beginning, the effects of the drug took effect, and she wanted to eat him up. In the end, the effects of the drug were gone, but a certain someone refused to stop. In the end, the one who was eaten up and begged for mercy was naturally her. Her cheeks blushed at the thought of last night. She was not embarrassed, but angry. Ming-ju looks at her appearance, but he also remembers last night. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a wicked smile. "Yin, Ben Jun thinks that Ben Jun can continue to be your antidote." "What fucking antidote?" She never wanted this kind of antidote in her life. Seeing that Ming-ju's eyes are getting deeper, Mu Yen immediately shows a pitiful expression. "Ming-ju, I'm really hungry. Do you know how much I've missed the delicacies you've made?" He knew that the naughty girl in his arms was deliberately teasing him and making him uncomfortable. Hearing Mayan's words, Ming-ju's heart is still unreasonably soft. He takes a deep breath, suppressing all the desires in his body. He stretches out a finger and gently scrapes the tip of the girl's nose. "Wait for me in the room. You're not allowed to run around. You're not allowed to wear this and let anyone see you." The last sentence is said through gritted teeth. Chapter 1199. Ming-ju's face reddens, somewhat angry from embarrassment, but slender snow-white fingers gently hook around it, 10 fingers interlocking. "I'm so happy. Ming-ju, I finally see you again." Ming-ju's eyes sway, and he suddenly reaches out to pull the person into his arms. He tightly hugs her. The low, husky voice is filled with boundless affection, almost overflowing with it. "Yin, I finally found you again." The door to the room slams shut in front of his eyes. Han Yi, who originally wanted to catch up to see what's going on, is directly hit on the nose, almost bursting into tears from the pain. But aside from the dreamy shock on his face, there's not the slightest bit of anger, only pleasant surprise. "Miss June, it's actually Miss June." "Huh? I said that June Shang would never fall in love with someone else, and even more so wouldn't like a woman other than Miss June." As he says that, he looks at the ashen-faced Xing Lang and Ji Jiping. This time, it's Han Ye's turn to be full of pride. This world's fate is really too wonderful for words. For example, June Shang and Miss June, it's really a marriage of thousands of miles, linked by a single thread. I really didn't expect that the person that Elder Ji casually chose would actually be our polar domain's future mistress. Xing Lang tightly clenches his hands in a fist, his eyes almost spurting out fire. "Shameless woman." "Xing Lang." Han Yi suddenly looks at Xing Lang, his face gloomy. "If you slander Miss June again, don't blame me for being impolite." "Did I say something wrong?" Xing Lang sneers. "How could a pure woman get pregnant before marriage and give birth to a bastard? How could a pure woman shamelessly climb onto June Shang's bed?" Before he could finish his words, Han Yi suddenly steps forward and starts fighting with Xing Lang. But before the two could fight to the end, the door to the room opens. Di Mingju slowly walks out from the room. Han Yi and Xing Lang immediately stop, one after another kneeling on the ground, paying respects to June Shang. Di Mingju indifferently says, "Where is the Silver Feather Palace kitchen?" There's silence all around, until Di Mingju's face shows impatience. Ji Jiping stutters, replying to Di Jun, "The Silver Feather Palace kitchen is on the west side. If Di Jun needs anything, this one will immediately send someone to prepare it." Di Mingju doesn't pay attention and turns to go to the kitchen. Xing Lang finally couldn't help but ask, "June Shang, what are you going to do?" Han Yi smiles merrily. "June Shang is definitely going to cook for Miss June Ah." She licked her lips. June Shang's delicacies taste really good ah. Unfortunately, apart from Miss June, it was too difficult for anyone else to eat it. Starwolf's entire body suddenly trembled, the hatred in his eyes almost overflowing. It's one thing for June Shang to enter that filthy kitchen in Tingguang ruins for that woman. Now, in this Xiujin continent, she actually wants June Shang to wash her hands and make soup for her. That woman, what right did she have? Xing Lang endured and endured, but in the end, he still opened his mouth. "June Shang, your status is the highest and most noble. How could you go into the kitchen for a woman?" Di Mingju turns around and waves his sleeve. The Star Wolf let out a muffled groan as he fell to the ground, blood seeping out from the corner of his mouth. Di Mingju looks down from high above, coldly looking at him. "Go to the army breaker office and receive 100 soul refining whips. If you offend him again, then get the hell out of the polar domain." Xing Lang's complexion was deathly pale as he trembled and knelt down. He said hoarsely, "This subordinate will not dare to do it again. Lord, please do not chase this subordinate away." But Di Mingju doesn't give him another glance. Chapter 1200. Ji Jiping shuddered as he was stared at by those cold blue eyes that were high above him, without a trace of emotion. He almost prostrated himself on the ground. "Did you drug mine? Tie her up and bring her here?" Hearing the ice-cold murderous intent in the voice, Ji Jiping's body trembles like a sieve, his voice carrying a sobbing tone. "Spare me, Di Jun. Spare me, Di Jun." This subordinate really didn't know that Miss June was your person, and didn't know that she was the mistress of the polar domain. This subordinate is willing to kowtow and apologize to Miss June. "Please spare this subordinate's life, Di Jun." Di Mingju sneers. "Ben Jun doesn't like other people to touch my yin-yin, and I won't allow anyone to harm yin-yin to live in this world." Ji Jiping stares blankly, then immediately reacts. "Di Jun can rest assured, everyone who touched Miss June, as well as those who drug her, this subordinate will clean up." But this subordinate really did it unintentionally, and there was absolutely no other offense towards Miss June. "Please spare my dog life, Di Ming Ju coldly looks at him, not saying anything, and turns to leave. Ji Jiping fearfully looks at Han Yi. Han Yi Darren, Di Jun. What does Di Jun mean? Han Yi stands up and pats his face. You want to save your dog life? Ji Jiping repeatedly nods. Then find a way to make Miss Jun forgive you. Han Yi smiles. If Miss Jun forgives you, Jun Shang naturally won't pursue you. Maybe you'll even benefit from it. Hearing that, Ji Jiping's eyes brighten at once. Facing Han Yi, he kowtows several times, then turns to leave. He has to think carefully about how to please this noble Miss Jun. Wait. Han Yi stops him, warning. What happened in this courtyard, Miss Jun's identity, as well as her relationship with Jun Shang. I don't want a second person to know about it in Silver Feather Palace. If it gets out, I understand. I understand. Ji Jiping repeatedly nods and bows. Han Yidaran, rest assured. Even if you give me 100 guts, I wouldn't dare to carelessly spread it. Han Yi withdraws his gaze, then looks at the tightly closed door that Jun Shang has placed a restriction on. He feels somewhat regretful. Jun Shang is really too stingy. After not seeing each other for so long, he still wanted to catch up with Miss Jun. She also wanted to know how the young master was doing. Although he's complaining in his heart, Han Ye's face is still beaming with joy. After finding Miss Jun, Xiaoying finally didn't need to worry anymore. When he turned around, he saw Star Wolf's resentful and unwilling gaze. He looks at the situation in the room, as if he can't wait to rush in and tear Mu Yan to pieces. Han Yi sneers, his face full of contempt. If you have the ability, then show Jun Shang your disrespect and hatred towards Miss Jun. What? Gnashing his teeth behind his back, but in front of Jun Shang, he was terrified and didn't even dare to show the slightest bit of emotion. Star Wolf, why are you so cowardly? Star Wolf glared at him angrily. I don't know what kind of magic potion that woman fed you in Ing Mei. She's just an insignificant Yinwu continent's trash mortal. She's repeatedly put Jun Shang in danger, yet you guys are still protecting her. Do you really think she's the mistress of the polar domain? Han Yi, I think you've lost your heads. This time, Han Yi doesn't get angry. Instead, he looks at him expressionlessly, his expression carrying a trace of pity and disdain. Chapter 1201. Otherwise, one day, you will pay the price for your contempt today. Without waiting for Star Wolf to react, he turned around and left like a bolt of lightning. TSK. What was there to say between him and the paranoid Star Wolf who was stuck in a dead end? He had to find Ing Mei as soon as possible and share this good news with her. Xing Lang hatefully looks in the direction where Han Yi left, gnashing his teeth. She's nothing more than a good-for-nothing woman. Apart from charming Jun Shang, what else can she do? If not for Jun Shang's protection, I could have pinched her to death at any time. She wanted him to pay the price for a woman? Wasn't that a joke? Star Wolf angrily glared at the tightly shut door for a while before turning to leave. After he left for a while, the door opened. Mu Yan looked in the direction of the Star Wolf's departure, slightly narrowing her eyes. Then, the corners of her mouth slowly curved into a charming smile. Mine only feels that her 5 viscera and 6 bowels and her soul have been cleansed as the delicious food enters her mouth. Even the rims of her eyes were wet and hot, and tears were about to gush out uncontrollably. She was a little embarrassed and complained, "This dish is too pungent. It's making me cry." Di Ming Ju pulls her into his arms, tightly hugging her. "Yin Yin, from now on, every day, I'll personally cook for you to wash your hands and make soup. Okay?" Mu Yan's heart is sour and warm, as if it's being wrapped up in sweet and greasy syrup. Being pampered by someone like this was like falling into a sweet abyss. She had sunk deeper and deeper, unable to extricate herself. But on the surface, she reveals a scrutinizing expression. She grabs Di Ming Ju's lapel and gently shakes it. "Jun Shang Darren, how many people have you said these sweet words to?" Di Ming Ju's face darkens. "Apart from you, who else has the qualifications to make Ben Jun speak sweet and honeyed words?" "Ah, how could there not be?" Mu Yan has a smile that isn't a smile. "For example, your fiancé who almost took my life." Di Ming Ju stares blankly, his expression suddenly congealing. Take your life? Who dares to hurt you? Mayan's gaze is a little cold. Her line of sight seems to penetrate everything in front of her, returning to the distant past. She remembered the so-called fairy who had questioned her about seducing someone else's fiancé. She thought of Changyu, who had died to save her. He thought of the heavenly thunder and the hopeless situation where there was no chance of survival. There was also Xiaobao, who was nowhere to be found. After listening to Mayan's narration, Di Mingju's complexion is simply bone-chilling. Lung Qingwan. So she actually did all these things behind my back. It looked like the punishment he gave to that woman and the Tian Yimin was really too light. If he had known earlier that this woman would actually dare to lay her hands on Mayan, he wouldn't have cared about Tian Yimin's kindness towards the polar domain. He would have crushed them to death long ago. Di Mingju abruptly stands up. His body is filled with a cold and cruel killing intent, as if it came from the depths of hell. No, he had to go to the Xiaoxing continent now and strangle Lung Qingwan to death. He will never allow anyone to hurt his yin-yin. However, just as Di Mingju is about to leave, he is pulled back by Mayan. Mayan presses him under her body, looking down at him from above. What? Jun Shangdaran is in such a hurry to go back to see his fiancée? I'm sure that whatever fairy must be a good match for Jun Shangdaran. A perfect match. Meeting the girl's cold and angry peach blossom eyes, the killing intent on Di Mingju's body slowly dissipates. Chapter 1202. Mayan snorts coldly. What? Lord Jun is very happy to see me jealous? Di Mingju nods seriously, his expression focused. I am very happy. Mu Yin blushes as she is stared at by that focused and affectionate gaze. She feels that this man's method of teasing her is a level higher. She calms herself down, then fiercely says, Then you can take it as that, but I'll say the ugly words first. Di Mingju, you are now mine. No woman can covet you, and you are not allowed to attract any rotten peach blossoms for me. If I find out that you have done anything wrong to me in the future, I will castrate you. Lord Jun, who is threatened to be castrated, not only isn't angry or annoyed, but shows a gentle and happy smile. Di Mingju's temperament has always been cold, and Mayan rarely sees him reveal such a happy smile. That incomparably handsome face becomes more and more dazzling, making people intoxicated and unable to tear their eyes away. Muyin also sees it a little differently. Suddenly, the world spins, and she is suddenly pressed under the man's body. Yin-yin, courtesy demands reciprocity. You can't be too close to other men, right? Especially that cross-dressing fifth senior brother of yours. When he says the last sentence, Di Mingju's voice is somewhat gnashing his teeth. Mu Yin suddenly recovers from the beauty and stares at the man in front of her. That day when fifth brother was in my room, the person I sensed was really you. As soon as this thought comes out, Mu Yin is very angry. Di Mingju, you bastard, you obviously came long ago, but you didn't come to see me, and even had people kidnap me. Do you think this is very fun? Di Mingju, Lord Jun, facing the questioning of his beloved woman, has a rare guilty conscience and shortness of breath. Will he say that when he saw Mu Yin getting along with that little uncle master in Tianguang ruins, he was half dead with jealousy? Will he say that he wanted to secretly see if Yin Yin still has him in her heart, but when he saw a man hugging Yin Yin intimately, he was so mad that he almost lost his mind and destroyed the whole starry school? Will he say that he asked someone to send a silk handkerchief with hidden riddles, hoping that Yin Yin would take the initiative to find him and confess her feelings? But in the end, his damn subordinates sent it to the wrong person, causing him to be unable to advance or retreat. If he said these words, did he still want his dignity as the extreme domain sovereign emperor? Mu Yin slightly narrows her eyes, her expression cold and heavy, her face full of displeasure. It seems that Jun Shangdaran doesn't really want to meet me again. I'm really sorry to bother you. With that, she got up to leave. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was pulled back and firmly shackled into a firm embrace. The man's low and husky voice rang in her ears. Ben Jun is jealous. You have so many strange men by your side, receiving your attention and protection. This monarch is jealous. What was the dignity of the polar domain's sovereign emperor? Was it more important than his yin? Mayan hangs her head down, her soft hair draping over her face, her shoulders slightly trembling. Di Mingju's heart tightens. Yin Yin in the Xiaoxin continent. There's not a moment that I don't want to see you. I don't want to return to your side. Muyin finally couldn't help but laugh. She lowered her head and raised her head, revealing a beautiful face that was filled with a playful smile. Di Mingju's complexion immediately darkens. He suddenly pushes, wanting to push away the person in his arms. Chapter 1203. Smiling with curved eyebrows, she looks at the angry man in front of her. Di Mingju, why are you so cute? Di Mingju grits his teeth. Do you know, in this world, in all the living beings of the three realms, there is no one who dares to play with Ben Jun like this. Mu Yin smiles even more happily and leans over to kiss his lips. Di Mingju, why do you want to see me jealous so much? Di Mingju stares blankly. He sees the girl approach him, her slender, jade-like fingers gently pressing on his chest. What you are, I am what I am. Di Mingju, I also want to make sure that after not seeing you for so long, your feelings for me are still the same. Di Mingju wants to speak, but Mu Yin covers his mouth. I am willing to trust you, rely on you, but when I see the woman who claims to be your fiancée, I will feel uneasy, jealous, and eager to prove that Di Mingju, you won't betray me. Di Mingju suddenly clasps her hands and presses them on both sides. His ice-blue eyes seem to be burning with the warmest and most affectionate flame, deeply reflecting Mayan shadow. Yin Yin, I will only say these words once. I, Di Mingju, even if I betray the whole world, I will never betray you. After saying that, Di Mingju suddenly leans over and grabs those soft red lips, dragging the two of them into a whirlpool of passion once again. In the end, Mu Yin directly falls asleep. When she wakes up the next day, her whole body is sore, as if it was run over by a strange beast. As soon as she wakes up, she smells the fresh aroma of food. Mu Yin doesn't feel happy at all. Instead, she fiercely glares at the man who gently holds her. But before she can speak, her stomach makes a goo-goob sound. Di Mingju smiles faintly, pulls her into his arms, and feeds her with his own hands. As soon as Mu Yin sits up, the thin quilt on her body slides down, revealing skin like snow and porcelain, as well as those ambiguous traces. At the same time, a scorching gaze falls on her body. Mu Yin reflexively pulls up the quilt to cover her body and angrily says, Di Mingju, where are my clothes? Di Mingju doesn't answer, but carefully and gently feeds her a bowl of porridge. Only then does he say, I had someone prepare your clothes, but there are no suitable clothes for you in Yin Yin Palace. Moreover, Yin Yin, Ben Jun likes you even more without clothes. There were no clothes suitable for him in the Silver Feather Palace? I'll be damned if I believe you. Why didn't she know what was in this man's mind before? Mu Yin glares at a certain shameless guy and takes out a set of clothes from the space. Although her space was quite big, it was a place for Xiaobao, Qi Huang, the fat rabbit, and little Phoenix to play and rest. Therefore, unless she had no other choice, Mu Yin rarely put useless things inside. Even the things she usually put in would be thrown out by Qi Huang, who despised it. Even after rummaging through the space for a long time, he could only find a set of men's clothes. Mu Yin picks up her clothes and is just about to change when she sees Di Mingju looking straight at her. The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches. Jun Shangdarin, can't you see that I want to change my clothes? Di Mingju's face reveals an ambiguous smile. Ben Jun is waiting for you to change. Mu Yin grinds her teeth. Shouldn't you take the initiative to avoid it? Di Mingju brushes his sleeves, unhurriedly saying, Yin Yin, from head to toe, is there a place that Ben Jun hasn't seen? Chapter 1204. Not because of shame, but because of anger. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at the man. Di Mingju, can you be even more indecent? Where did the arrogant Jun Shang, who didn't even know how to kiss and would blush at the slightest words of love, go? Di Mingju didn't seem to move at all, but he suddenly disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he had already pulled Mu Yin into his arms. Yin Yin, even if I am indecent, I will only be indecent to you. Mu Yin lifted her foot and kicked him off the bed. Facing this shameless man, she had no choice but to put on the men's clothes in front of him and tie up her hair with a silver string. In the blink of an eye, the originally charming and enchanting girl became a handsome and elegant young man. Di Mingju's gaze unabashedly sweeps over her captivating red lips, her slender and snow-white neck, and that slender waist that can be held in one arm. That undisguised burning gaze seemed to be able to tear off her clothes. Mu Yin brushed the corner of her clothes, but was very satisfied. I will return to Yaoguang branch first. Senior brother and sister haven't seen me for a day. They must be anxious now. However, she had only taken 2 steps when she was pulled back by Di Mingju. How did you enter Starry School? Hearing this, the smile on Mu Yan's face turned into worry and longing. Di Mingju immediately reacted. To find Xiaobao? Mu Yan nodded. Qiuqiu can sense Xiaobao's location, but can't determine the specific location. It only knows that it may be able to find clues in Starry School. She sighed softly. But in the first 3 days of school, I asked everywhere, but I didn't hear of any Red Lotus of Snow Domain in Starry School. Xiaobao has never left my side for so long. In the past, he always needed to snuggle in my arms to sleep. Now that he is alone, I don't know if he will be lonely, if he will cry. Di Mingju frowned in disgust. Xiaobao is a boy. He should naturally experience more hardships. Otherwise, how can he become the master of the polar domain in the future? In my opinion, since Xiaobao is not in danger now, and his strength is steadily increasing, you don't need to rush to find him. Just let him experience more. Don't bother mother all day, useless. Under Mu Yan's dissatisfied glare, Di Mingju's final words are silenced. He coughs, softening his tone. Don't worry, I've already ordered Han Yi to send people to look for him. There will definitely be news of him very soon. Of course, he didn't say that he added a note to Han Ye's task. If you find Xiaobao and make sure that he's safe and sound, don't be in a hurry to bring him back and disturb his and Yin Yin's 2-person world. Di Mingju's mind spins, but his face is serious as he scolds her. Yin Yin, Xiaobao will grow up in the end. You've been protecting him, spoiling him, making him unable to become stronger. It's better to let him roam the world. Mayan frowns. Xiaobao is only 5 years old. So what if she's 5? Di Mingju raises an eyebrow. Even if Di Mingju's son is only 5 years old, who dares to move, who can move? If he doesn't even have the ability to protect himself, I'll break his legs when he comes back. Mayan gives him a sidelong glance. You speak as if Xiaobao is your child. As soon as the words left his mouth, both of them were stunned. Di Mingju's heart feels like it's been ruthlessly stabbed. Chapter 1205. The ruthlessness and jealousy at the bottom of his heart is like a viper spitting out its tongue, wanting to scuttle out. Mayan's eyes are unblinking as she looks at him, without the slightest bit of hesitation or evasion. Her arm gently wraps around Di Mingju's neck. Her voice is soft and resolute. Di Mingju, can you really accept my past? Can you accept Xiaobao? If Di Mingju has a grudge against Xiaobao, even if she would be heartbroken to leave Di Mingju, she would still do it. Because for her, Xiaobao is her most important treasure in this world. No one can harm him, not even herself. Di Mingju's gaze is heavy as he looks at her. Ben Jun said that I have long regarded Xiaobao as my own son. This is not because of you, but because Ben Jun is willing. He won't say it, but from the moment he saw Xiaobao, there was a wonderful feeling growing little by little in the bottom of his heart. There's a little bit of disgust, but there's 99% tenderness. There's a little helplessness, but there's 99% expectation. In the unseen world, that little guy is like his own child, softening his heart that's as hard as iron, making him plan to make him the future master of the polar domain from the very beginning. Listening to the man's resolute and decisive words, Mayan's face blossoms with a brilliant smile. She has long known that Di Mingju treats Xiao Bao very well, so well that it's as harmonious as a biological father and son. But she still wants to hear it from Di Mingju's own mouth. That way, she can completely entrust her heart to him. That way, she can look forward to building a new family. A new home that belongs to her, belongs to Di Mingju, belongs to Xiao Bao. Looking at the girl's flower-like smile, Di Mingju's expression doesn't clear up in the slightest. His voice is low, and he slowly says, "What about you, Yin Yin? You said that you only love Xiao Bao's biological father. Now, how much of his place is there in your heart? And how much of it is Ben Jun's?" Huh. Di Mingju's question makes Mayan dumbfounded. It's only now that she remembers, in order to refuse and prevaricate Di Mingju. She said that she only loved Xiao Bao's biological father. Let him give up on this idea. Mayan can only feel fine beads of sweat forming on her forehead. She stutters. "Di Mingju, this matter, you listen to my explanation," but in Di Mingju's eyes, her hemming and hawing appearance is proof that she still has feelings for Xiao Bao's biological father. Not waiting for Mu Yin to speak, he abruptly clasps Mayan's waist and presses her into his embrace. Then, a large palm presses down on the back of Mayan's head, and he kisses her heavily. The man's clothes that he had just put on were gently untied and slid down. The clouds dispersed, and the rain stopped. Di Mingju embraces the girl in his arms, greedily looking at her sleeping face. His finger gently stretches out, tracing along Mayan's exquisite eyebrows. The gentleness in those icy blue eyes was like a vast ocean that could drown people. If someone from the polar domain or the Shoshin continent were to see this Di Mingju, perhaps they would think that they're seeing a fake monarch. That ruthless Di Mingju who kills decisively, who is aloof, who is cold and heartless. In front of this woman called Jun Mayan, he discards all of his pride and indifference, turning them into bone-piercing tenderness. Only in front of this one person, Di Mingju lowers his head and gently pecks the girl's soft lips. That charming and gentle and fiery scene from a moment ago flits through his mind, and the yearning in his body is once again restlessly reviving. Chapter 1206. That incomparably handsome face has once again become stern and ascetic. In the past, he lived like a heartless and desireless puppet. No matter how beautiful a peerless beauty, or how enchanting a naked body, in his eyes, it's just like a rosy skeleton, unable to set off even the slightest ripple in his heart. Only in these 5 years, in his dreams, does he dream that he's holding a woman in a cave. But after waking up, his heart, his emotions, his desires are still ice cold. Until he meets Mu Yin. It's like a collision of fates, making all the desires and feelings in his body recover, and even boil over. In the Yinwu continent, he relentlessly pursued Mu Yin, little by little moving the heart of this cunning fox-like woman. In the Wuwang Mountains, even if he took advantage of someone's perilous situation, he was still forced to desire to possess Mu Yin, longing to imprison this woman by his side forever. Now, Yin Yin is finally his, from body to heart, but he doesn't know why. There's still a faint panic in Di Mingju's heart. In the unseen world, there seems to be something pulling him and Mu Yin, wanting to isolate and separate the two. He's afraid that all this is just flowers in a mirror and the moon reflected in the water. Therefore, he urgently wants to possess Mu Yin again and again, wants to use skin contact, wants to use Yin Yan's passionate voice to call out his name again and again, to prove that all this is true. Yin Yin, in your heart, how much space do I have? But no matter how much in this lifetime, in this lifetime, I will not let you go. Miss! Ingmei pounces in front of Mu Yin. The youngster has always been cold, but there's a rare expression of excitement on his face. Hearing from Han Yi that Mu Yin has been found, Ingmei wants to see her all the time. However, Di Mingju keeps his door closed all day long, even taking care of Mu Yan's clothing, food, shelter, and transportation himself. Ingmei, who has always been extremely respectful to Di Mingju, complains for the first time, Junshang is really too stingy. Even I am not allowed to see the Mississippi. Mu Yin rarely sees her fuming appearance and can't help but chuckle. Then she leans close to her ear and whispers something. Ingmei's cheeks immediately turn red. Under Mu Yan's stare, she awkwardly and shyly nods. Mayan raises her hand and closes the door. He smiled warmly and said, "I guess the effects of the treatment last time should be over. Fortunately, my music doctor level has advanced. After this treatment, you shouldn't have to worry for the next few years." The beautiful girl lazily leaned against the bed, squinting at the young man whose entire body was flushed red. She smiled a little mischievously. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take off your clothes." Ingmei's face was so red that it could almost drip water. In particular, Mayan is staring at her with interest, sizing her up, making her feel like she's being adjusted. But after hesitating for a moment, she finally took off her clothes and untied her chest. Muyin looks at the beautiful scenery in front of her and clicks her tongue in amazement. "I haven't seen you for half a year. I didn't expect that you've grown up again. It's really a good thing for that Han Yi kid." "Miss!" Ingmei cried out in a low voice. She covered her body with her clothes, wishing she could find a hole to hide in. Seeing that she's really going to annoy her, Mayan smiles and takes out the Tian Mo Chin, slowly plucking the strings. This time, she did not use Floating Like a Dream or Realm of Stars. Chapter 12:07. With her current strength, even if she activated her domain, she might not be able to make Ingmei enter the illusion. Healing Ingmei's injuries in the illusion would consume all of her spiritual power. Therefore, Muyin activated the Cloud Dispersing Mist skill. Cloud Dispersing Fog. Through the sound of the zither, one can unblock the meridians, smooth the dantian, cleanse the divine soul, and dispel the inner demons. The sound of the zither was like a gurgling stream caressing Ingmei's body, causing her to let out a low moan that sounded both carefree and painful. After a long time, the sound of the zither stopped. When Ingmei opened her eyes again, she was sweating profusely. The pain brought by the zither music just now seemed to have stirred up her internal organs and meridians. It was different from the last time when he only felt pain in his chest. This time, it was as if her entire body had been shattered and reconstructed. That kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. But she smiled gratefully. She hurriedly wraps the corset around her chest and puts on her inner clothes. She doesn't even have time to put on her outer clothes before she kneels on the ground and kowtows to Mayan. "Miss Great Kindness, Ingmei doesn't know how to repay it." Muyin stretches out a slender, jade-like finger and gently hooks up her chin. There's a devilish smile on his face. "I don't know how to repay you. How about you repay me with your body?" Before Ingmei could answer, the door of the room was slammed open. Di Mingju walks in with an ashen face. Seeing Mu Yin flirting with Ingmei, his complexion becomes even more gloomy, as if shrouded in a storm. Following behind Di Mingju, Han Yi and Xinglang have different expressions on their faces. Han Yi almost immediately rushes to Ingmei's side, pulling her behind him. He looks at Mayan with a bitter face. "Miss June, even if you're not afraid of death, you can't take our family's littling with you." Miss June is truly a professional, dedicated to teasing Junshang's tiger whiskers for 10,000 years. But the problem is, Junshang won't do anything to Miss June. Ingmei will have to bear Junshang's wrath. Not to mention that Ingmei is a woman. His family's Junshang is so petty that he would even eat his own son's jealousy. How could Miss June be like this? Han Yi would never admit that when he sees this scene. He's the same as Junshang, about to explode with jealousy. Xinglang, on the other hand, had a mocking expression as he coldly looked at Mu Yin. He knew that this woman wouldn't be content with her lot. She was a loose woman. She even dared to seduce Junshang's trusted aide. However, this is also good. In this way, Junshang will be able to see this woman's true colors. Junshang will never tolerate people who betray him. He wanted to see how this woman was going to cry and beg for mercy to save her life. However, the next scene that appeared in front of him shocked Star Wolf so much that he abruptly widened his eyes. He sees that not only is Mayan not crying and begging for mercy, she's also fearful and fearful. Instead, he grabbed Mei's collar and pulled her into his arms. Then he looks at Han Yi with a smile that isn't a smile. What do you mean by your family's little Ing? Little Ing is clearly mine. Otherwise, you can ask Mei who she is willing to follow. Han Ye's indignant and imploring eyes, as well as Di Mingju's murderous gaze. Mei looked embarrassed, but said without hesitation, I swore to follow Miss for the rest of my life. Hearing this, Mayan's heart is in full bloom. She wants to lean over and kiss Mei's face. Di Mingju is finally at the end of his patience. He grabs the back of Mayan's neck and lifts her up, firmly locking her in his arms. Chapter 1208. Mayan looks at him with a smile that isn't a smile. Why is Jun Shangdaran so angry? Afraid that I'll seduce your subordinates? Then it would be better for Jun Shangdaran to let me go back to the academy. I'll go harm others. Di Mingju's grip on her waist suddenly tightens, and he fiercely glares at her. Don't even think about it. Saying that, his cold gaze sweeps over Mei and the others. Get out! Yes. Yes. Han Yi doesn't hesitate to pulling Mei and run. As he passes by Xing Lang, he sees him foolishly looking at Di Mingju and Mayan, his face full of disbelief. Out of love for fellow disciples, Han Yi pushes him. What are you staring at? Still not leaving. Pestering here and disturbing Jun Shang's love affair. Do you want to die? Do you want to die? Do you want to die? Xing Lang grits his teeth. In the end, he still couldn't help but say, Jun Shang, this woman and Mei are so clingy and ambiguous. Are you really not going to pursue this matter? Di Mingju turns his head to look over his handsome and noble face without a trace of expression. But when he meets that pair of calm and unwavering eyes, Xing Lang shudders and falls to his knees with a thud. This subordinate was impetuous. I shouldn't have asked about Jun Shang's private affairs. I begged Jun Shang to spare my life. Di Mingju sneers. 200 lashes. Get lost. Before his voice falls, a gust of wind hits, and the three people are sent out in a sorry state. The door closes with a bang. Xing Lang glares at the closed door, gnashing his teeth in anger. Han Yi laughs out loud. Xing Lang, you still haven't fully recovered from the 100 lashes of the soul refining whip. Now you've received another 100 lashes. Really? The evils you brought upon yourself are the hardest to bear. Xing Lang suddenly turns to glare at Han Yi and Mei. Don't be too complacent. Who is Jun Shang? How could he allow his woman to hook around? That woman even dares to hook up with Mei, let alone a man outside. Aren't you afraid that Jun Shang would kill her in a fit of anger? Tsh. Han Yi sneers. Xing Lang, I advise you to open your eyes and see what kind of position Miss Mayan has in Jun Shang's mind. Don't say I didn't warn you. If you keep going against Miss Jun, you'll have to suffer. Mei tidied up his clothes and coldly looked at Xing Lang. I don't care how many years you've been by Jun Shang's side. As long as you dare to make a move against young Miss and little Gongzi, even if I'm expelled from the polar domain, I won't let you off. After saying that, he turned around and left without hesitation. Han Yi immediately jolts his buttocks to catch up, shouting or wait for me. I'm telling you, although, you should also pay attention to keeping your distance from Miss Jun. Aren't you afraid of angering Jun Shang? Mei glares at him with cold eyes, and Han Yi immediately wilts. He pointed at her with an aggrieved expression. Little you're too good to Miss Jun. Do you only have Miss Jun in your heart? You don't even have a place for me. The more she spoke, the more resentful she sounded. Mei looked at him and couldn't help but laugh out loud. She reached out and lightly pushed his head. Idiot, how can there only be a place? Saying that, she didn't wait for Han Yi to react, and her figure suddenly leapt up, disappearing without a trace. Han Yi stared blankly in place for a long time, before he suddenly reacted. Shouting at you? What did you just say? Can you say it again? Shouting or wait for me. What are you going to do? Mei hovers in the air, turning her head to look at him. Naturally, I'm going to look for the little master from Mississippi. Chapter 1209. I knew it. My place in your heart. is not even a tenth of Miss June's. Xinglang looks at the direction in which Mei and Han Yi left, and then looks at the tightly shut door. He comforted himself again and again in his heart. That woman was so fickle and had betrayed Jun Shang. Jun Shang would never let her off so easily. That lowly woman from the Yinwu continent. She had already given birth to a bastard child with someone else. How could such a woman have the qualifications to become the mistress of the polar domain? Sooner or later, Jun Shang will definitely discover this woman's true colors. She has simulated Jun Mayan's miserable fate of being skinned and her bones torn apart by Jun Shang many times in her mind. Only then did Star Wolf suppress the unwillingness and hatred in his heart, turn around, and leave. Thinking about the 100 lashes of the soul-refining whip, he couldn't help but shiver. But he would not regret it. He would never allow such a dirty and shameless woman to stay by Jun Shang's side. At this moment, the woman whom Star Wolf thought was shameless was eating the delicacies personally cooked by Lord Monarch with relish. Mu Yin swallows the delicious barbecue with satisfaction and suddenly remembers something. By the way, I met a very interesting child in the Tingguang ruins. As Mu Yin speaks, she looks meaningfully at Di Ming Ju. That child's name has the character Ju, and his temperament is somewhat similar to yours. What surprises me the most is that he's such a young child, but the food he makes is actually very delicious. As she spoke, she picked up a piece of barbecued meat with her chopsticks and took a bite. When I took a bite, I thought you made it. Hearing this, Di Ming Ju indifferently responds, "Oh, is that so?" Mayan suspiciously looks at Di Ming Ju's reaction. Does Mo Ju have any relationship with Di Ming Ju? Aren't you curious about what kind of child he is? Di Ming Ju casually scoops a bowl of soup and places it in front of Mayan, faintly saying, "You also said that he's just a child. Could it be that he could become Ben Jun's rival in love? I, on the other hand, am more interested in your senior brothers and junior martial uncle." Cough, 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 cough. Mu Yin almost choked on the soup and promptly warned him, "My fellow apprentices are very good to me. Don't mess around." Di Ming Ju snorts, declining to comment. However, Mu Yin completely dispelled her suspicions. Thinking about it, it was quite funny. How could she think that Mo Ju was Di Ming Ju? Although one could change one's appearance and even gender in the Tingguang ruins was different. However, he could only adjust his appearance from top to bottom. It was impossible to turn an adult into a child, and Tingguang ruins would never allow it. What's more, Di Ming Ju is such a proud person. How could he take the initiative to turn into a child, and even ask her for a hug? Obviously, she was thinking too much. Mu Yin couldn't help shaking her head in self-mockery, but she quickly regained her interest. That child Mo Ju is really fun. When I first saw him, I thought Xiao Bao had returned. Later on, I always felt that he was very similar to you. Now that I think about it, it's a little funny. If there's a chance next time, I'll take you to see him. Di Ming Ju's hand pauses in the middle of picking up some food. With great difficulty, he manages to maintain his expression and gives a faint in. Mu Yin couldn't help but sigh. It's just that Mo Ju hasn't appeared in Tingguang ruins since we last parted. Perhaps she won't appear again in the future. Chapter 1210. However, looking at Mu Yan's desolate expression, he hesitated. Otherwise, he would go up again to make her happy. After the meal, Mu Yan said that she wanted to return to Starry School. Who knew that Di Ming Ju would reject her? We have just reunited, and you want to leave me for another man? There's even a bit of hidden bitterness in Jun Shang Darren's tone. Mu Yin glared at him. You know that I want to find Xiao Bao in Starry School. Di Ming Ju glanced at her. I will find him for you. Starry School teaches the cultivation of the 5 elements and alchemy. I just came to the cultivation continent and have a lot to learn. What do you want to learn? I will teach you. Di Ming Ju snorted. What's Starry School? Is it better than what I teach? Previously in the Yinwu continent, because there was no spiritual power in the world, it was full of barren air. Therefore, even if Di Ming Ju wanted to teach her, he couldn't do it. Now that they finally came to the cultivation continent, He couldn't wait for Mu Yan's cultivation to improve by leaps and bounds so that they could return to the cultivation continent and get married. He had even prepared the elixir for Mu Yan's advancement. However, the elixir had elixir poison after all. If he had a choice, he would not let Mu Yan take it. Looking at the man's domineering look, Mu Yan was speechless. Deming Ju, don't go too far. Do you want to lock me up for life? Before she could finish, Deming Ju covered her mouth and took away all her breath. When Lord Jun couldn't be reasoned with, he liked to do it. The next day, when Mu Yan woke up, she couldn't even straighten her back. While Deming Ju had something to do, she decided to sneak away. That bastard old hooligan. If she stayed any longer, she might really be killed by Deming Ju in bed. Ju Mu Yan, you've fallen, Chi Huang said angrily in her ear. That man wanted to imprison you like a slave, but you didn't get angry or resist. You even obediently let him lock you up in the room for so many days. Mu Yan curled her lips. My man, I'm happy to be imprisoned by him. I'm happy to be pampered and pampered. What can you do about it? In fact, mine has long felt Deming Ju's uneasiness and overbearingness during this reunion. It was the fear and trepidation brought about by the near separation of life and death. She wakes up in the middle of the night and leans against Deming Ju's chest, listening to his steady and powerful heartbeat. Mu Yan is also in a trance for a moment. Are they really reunited? Could they really grow old together and never be apart? It's not only Deming Ju who's uneasy, Shi Mayan is also uneasy. Therefore, even if what Jun Mayan most dislikes is imprisonment and control, she will still indulge her man just the same. Of course, Deming Ju doesn't really want to imprison her. Otherwise, with Jun Shangdaren's ability, if he really built a golden cage, she wouldn't be able to escape even if she grew wings. Chi Huang was exasperated. She angrily punched the grass twice and rolled around, ignoring her. Although he planned to sneak away, Mu Yan was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he strolled around the entire courtyard. This should be the guest house of the Silver Feather Palace. There were people from the Silver Plume Palace guarding both inside and outside the courtyard. The strength of these people was extremely high, and each of them had a cultivation similar to the one who had kidnapped her that day. However, the people who had kidnapped her that day were nowhere to be seen. Chapter 12:11. Each and every one of the people who stay in this guest house is extremely respectful towards her, fearing that they would be implicated if she bumps or bumps. However, when Mu Yan wants to leave the guest house, she is cautiously and fearfully stopped by them. What are you doing here? A man's cold voice suddenly comes from behind her. Mu Yan turns around and sees a handsome man with an incomparably gloomy and disgusted expression striding towards her. Xing Lang, one of the 4 Imperial Guards by Deming Ju's side. This is the information that Mu Yan got from Han Ye's mouth. And this Xing Lang clearly doesn't like her very much. However, Mu Yan doesn't think that she's a spar, so there's no need for everyone to like her. Therefore, she doesn't feel like bickering with him, so she turns around and leaves. Ju Mu Yan, stop. Xing Lang is infuriated by her indifferent attitude of disregarding him, and his voice suddenly becomes a bit heavier. Mu Yan turns around and raises her eyebrows. What's the matter? The disgust in Xing Lang's eyes deepens. You're nothing more than a taboo raised by Jun Shang, a tool for Jun Shang to vent his desires. Don't think that you can charm the Lord of Calamity just by relying on that face and that little bit of foxy skill. The future mistress of the polar domain can't possibly be your kind of trash. Stop your wishful thinking. There's not the slightest change in the expression on Mu Yan's face. She just casually raises her eyebrows and carelessly says, "Oh, is that so? Are you done? If you're done, then I'm leaving." Xing Lang is stunned. Mu Yan turns around to leave. Xing Lang jumps in front of her, his body emitting a strong, murderous aura. Stop. Who said that you can wander around in this courtyard? Could it be that hooking up with a Ying Mei isn't enough? You still want to hook up with another man in this courtyard? Still not going back to the house for me? Obediently wait for Jun Shang to pamper you. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, a cold light flitting through them. But very quickly, she looks Xing Lang up and down and leisurely says, "How does it feel to be whipped 200 times?" As soon as these words come out, Xing Lang immediately feels a burning pain on his back. 200 lashes of the soul-refining whip. Jin isn't someone that ordinary people can bear. Although he's pretending that nothing is wrong, the truth is that he can't even stand. All of this was caused by the woman in front of him. The Star Wolf coldly stares at Mu Yan. His hands are already slowly gathering murderous spiritual power. "If you don't return to the house, don't blame me for being impolite." Facing the piercingly cold, killing intent that is condensed around her, not only does Mu Yan's face not have a trace of fear, she instead smiles faintly. She was extremely beautiful to begin with. At this moment, her lips curled up into a smile, her brows relaxed, and her peach blossom eyes shone brightly, extremely charming. It was as if 100 flowers had bloomed, stealing people's hearts and souls. Even the Star Wolf was stunned, and the killing intent on his body subconsciously retracted a little. He hears Mind chuckling. "You want me to go back to my room? Sure, then please send me back, Lord Star Wolf." Star Wolf abruptly returned to his senses when he heard this. There's even more disgust in his eyes as he looks at Mayan. This woman, not only did she seducing Mei, she even wanted to seduce him. Sure enough, she was a fickle slut. How can this kind of woman stay by Junshang's side? However, he quickly thought of something and said with a sullen face, "All right, I'll send you back." He wanted to personally expose this woman's true colors so that she would have nowhere to hide from him. One after the other, the two of them enter the house. Mayan raises her hand, and the door closes with a bang. Chapter 12:12. A lone man and woman sharing a room with him. This woman really wants to seduce him. Xing Lang coldly snorts and casually throws out a Chinquan bag. "I advise you, don't make any more useless efforts. The Polar Domain's sacred land absolutely cannot tolerate a lowly woman like you. If you're sensible, take these crystals and obediently disappear from Junshang's sight. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." Mayan touches her chin, looking like she's seriously considering it. "It's not impossible for me to disappear from Di Mingju's sight." "Scoundrel!" Xing Lang flies into a rage. "You actually dare to directly address Junshang by his name." Mayan looks at the young man's flushed face and neck and can't help but laugh. This guy is actually Di Mingju's brainless fan, right? Mayan smiles as she smoothly says, "It's not impossible for me to disappear from Junshang Darren's sight, but these crystals alone aren't enough." As she speaks, she slowly takes off her outer garment. Xing Lang has already guessed that this woman will seduce him. Seeing this scene at this time, he suddenly widens his eyes in fright, and his cheeks flush red. You have no sense of honor." He suddenly turns around, shouting in a flustered and exasperated manner, "I'm warning you, I will never betray Junshang in the slightest." Before Xing Lang could finish his words, he suddenly feels a swift and fierce murderous intent attacking him from behind. His reaction is also extremely fast. The spiritual power in his dantian suddenly revolves, forming a protective shield in a flash, blocking the attack. Xing Lang abruptly turns his head. He sees that the girl who was just about to undress a moment ago has an ancient zither in her hands. As the sound of the zither spirals and spirals, sound blades directly attack Xing Lang like a net of swords. Xing Lang didn't expect that Mayan would actually dare to make a move against him. A mere fasting stage cultivator actually dares to make a move against him. An immortal. It's simply a huge joke. Xing Lang sneers. Then with a wave of his hand, the sound blades scatter without a trace. "Insignificant skill, you dare to show off in front of me." However, before Xing Lang could finish his words, the sound of the zither between Mayan's fingers suddenly changes. Immediately after, with Mayan as the center, a powerful magnetic field spreads out in all directions, enveloping the entire room in an instant. Star Wolf's eyes suddenly widened, his face filled with disbelief and shock. "Domain? How could it be a domain?" Following the formation of the domain, Star Wolf felt his body becoming heavier and his thoughts becoming sluggish. Even the circulation of the spiritual energy in his body became sluggish, and the music was still drilling into his body bit by bit. Ah! Star Wolf bellowed. You think a mere Inedia stage's domain can control me? The zither-playing girl slowly raised her head. His smooth forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. His face was slightly pale due to the exhaustion of his spiritual power. But the corners of her mouth hooked up into a charming smile. Xinglang, do you still remember my question just now? 200 whips? It must be hard, right? What? Just as Star Wolf asked in astonishment, he felt the wound on his back suddenly split open. The intense pain instantly caused his spiritual power to collapse, and he could no longer think clearly. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his head. The Star Wolf couldn't take it anymore. His body swayed and fell to the ground, completely losing consciousness. Behind Xinglang, a young man in red clothes appeared. Chapter 12-13. Jun Mayan. Don't forget, this Zune is a venerable tool spirit. Letting this Zune personally deal with this kind of small shrimp, wouldn't that lower this Zune's style? Mayan rolls her eyes. Yes, honorable. You want me to use my domain to help you subdue a small shrimp tool spirit. Qi Huang is driven mad. You don't know what's good for you. Isn't this Zune trying to help you? Wait a minute, Jun Mayan. What are you doing? Halfway through Qi Huang's anger, he finds that Mayan has crouched down and started to take off the Star Wolf's clothes. Until the Star Wolf is stripped naked, she continues to take off the clothes on her body. Qi Huang is simply in a mess. You. Why are you so hungry that you can't be choosy? You won't even let off this kind of small shrimp. That if you're really hungry, this Zune can also reluctantly make love with you. Mayan snappily glares at him, too lazy to talk nonsense with this silly sweet tool spirit. She only takes off the outer garment, then stops and picks up the Star Wolf's clothes to put on. Qi Huang stares blankly. You? Mayan says in disgust, if I don't change into men's clothes to cover myself, how could I leave the courtyard? Moreover, isn't this all your fault? You think this is ugly, that's not pretty, and you don't allow me to put anything into the Tian and Mochin space. Otherwise, I would only have a change of clothes on me? The key point is that the only set of clothes she has to change and has been torn by that beast, Dimingju. Qi Huang is a little embarrassed, but he still stiffens his neck and argues. This Zune is the Tian Mochin's tool spirit. The Tian Mochin space is equivalent to this Zune's body. You put those filthy things into this Zune's body, of course the Zune would object. So now I'm not reduced to only being able to strip other men's clothes? Mayan changes into the Star Wolf's clothes, and her mood is a little better. That's because the Star Wolf's clothes are actually a set of magic weapons. Not only does it have a defensive function, but it can also automatically expand and contract, adapting to the owner's body shape. It was to the extent that the inner clothes on the Star Wolf's back had long been soaked in blood, but there was not a single stain on the outer clothes. Muyin looked at the handsome young man in the mirror and brushed her clothes in satisfaction. All right, we can return to the Starry School now. At this time, Seven Brilliance had already hidden himself in the space. Hearing him muttering to himself, she couldn't help but hesitate. You really plan to leave Dimingju without saying goodbye? Aren't you afraid of him getting angry? What Qi Huang wants to say is that the man's true face is far more frightening and powerful than what Mu Yin has seen. Only in front of Mu Yin would that man restrain all of his coldness and arrogance, only revealing a gentle and pampering side. However, Qi Huang is certain that if Mayan betrays Dimingju, if the two of them stand on opposing sides, this man's ruthlessness was not something that anyone could endure. Oh, right, I almost forgot if you didn't mention it. Mu Yin seemed to suddenly remember something, quickly took out a pen and paper and wrote on it. Dimingju, because your subordinates feel that I'm not worthy of you. They want me to stay away from you and not have wishful thinking. I thought about it again and again, and felt that what he said was right. I'm indeed not worthy of you. Thus, I've decided to bear the pain and leave you. Take care, don't think about me. Jun Mayan. Chapter 1214. Thus, she took the talisman and wrote a paragraph on the yellow paper with red cinnabar. Then, she stuck it on Star Wolf's forehead. Chi Huang looked at what she wrote and could not help but mourn for the man lying on the ground. Who could he offend? Why did he have to offend the vengeful Junmayan? He could imagine how furious Di Mingju would be when he found out that Junmayan was missing. As for the culprit, Star Wolf, who bore the brunt of it, what would happen to him? Mu Yin finished sticking the talisman and was about to leave. She looked at the naked Star Wolf on the ground and the clothes she had taken off. He rolled his eyes, then turned back and helped Star Wolf put on his clothes with great effort. However, this time, she did not put on every piece of clothing. Instead, she put on a light veil for Star Wolf. Then, she moved him to the bed and made an enchanting pose. Di Mingju would definitely be very happy to see this scene when he opened the door. "Hey, Junmayan, don't you have any shame?" Chi Huang shouted unhappily. "You're a woman. How can you stare at a man's body for so long? Don't you know shame?" Mu Yin smiled and said meaningfully, "If I don't look carefully, how can I paint when I go back?" Paint? Yes." Mu Yin nodded matter-of-factly. "Such a beautiful scene, such an enchanting woman. If I can't paint her, wouldn't it be a pity? But Di Mingju will be back soon. It's impossible to paint here, so I can only imprint this scene in my mind and paint when I go back." Mu Yan's smile became even brighter. "When I reunite with Star Wolf in the future, I'll let him see my heroic appearance. I'm sure he'll thank me for painting him so beautifully." Chi Huang was speechless. Why did he suddenly pity Star Wolf? Starry School, School of the Emperor's Star. In the main hall, the 6 school deans sat on 2 sides. Sitting in the middle of the main seat was a middle-aged man with a gentle face and no facial hair. He looked like a weak scholar, but in reality, he was the Starry School's vice dean, Su Iluan. Su Iluan glanced at the 6 people seated before him. With a flick of his wrist, a stack of gold cards appeared before him. He slowly said, "In my hand is the acknowledgement of the Academy's invitation." Hearing this, the 6 people below all revealed joyful and expectant expressions. Meng Baichuan, the dean of the Tianshu Branch Academy, said, "I wonder if Senior Zhao, the hollow cry sword that I've taken a fancy to, has accepted the invitation? What about Master Lu Huizhua from the Heavenly Jade Branch? Is she willing to come to my Jade Branch to teach?" Su Iluan smiled and glanced at the boy beside him. The boy immediately stepped forward and took the first golden card. "Senior Zhao Yingli, Empty Cry Sword, has rejected the invitation to teach at our academy." Hearing this, the dean of the Tianshu Institute immediately revealed a dejected expression, but he was not surprised. Who was Zhao Yingli, the vacant sword? He was someone who could fight against the #1 sword cultivator in the world, young Master Yun Xiao, for 50 moves without being defeated. Ever since the fight between Zhao Yingli and Luo Yunxiao had spread, although he had lost without any suspense, he had become well known to the world. His net worth had increased more than 100-fold. It was natural for Senior Zhao to look down on a mere teacher of the Starry School. Next, the boy mentioned a few more names. Among the 6 schools, some were happy and some were hostile. Chapter 1215. The 6 sat in their seats, satisfied. Some drank tea, while others stroked their beards, looking indescribably at ease. At this time, the child had already picked up the last golden invitation and sang. According to the college chief's request, Mr. Yun Xiao is invited to be a tutor of Starry School. Hearing this, the 6 people below did not react at all. The 3 major colleges on the cultivation continent, including the most powerful dragon soaring college. They would invite Luo Yunxiao almost every year. There was even a dean of the Phoenix Sky Academy who directly announced that he would give up his position as dean to young Master Yunxiao. But he had never received any response. Someone that even Dragon Soaring College could not invite. Someone that did not even care about the position of the college chief. How could he come to Starry School? There was no need to guess the result of this invitation. The child opened and closed his mouth, saying in a childish tone, Mr. Yun Zhao's reply is that he is willing to accept Starry School's invitation to be a tutor. The conditions are As soon as Xiao Tong said that, everyone present stood up abruptly. Even Su Yiluan, who had always been calm, widened his eyes, looking like he had seen a ghost. As a result, he did not hear a single word of the child's later words. What did you just say? Meng Baichuan's voice was almost roaring. Su Yiluan even snatched the golden invitation directly. When he saw Luo Yunxiao's unique cloud sword symbol, he was completely enchanted. The golden invitation in his hand could not be held because of his trembling, and it floated down. But before it fell, Meng Baichuan rushed over and picked it up. Meng Baichuan anxiously grabbed the golden invitation to take a look, his expression even more dazed than Su Yiluan's. Am I dreaming? I'm not dreaming, am I? Mr. Yun Xiao is coming to Starry School? The golden invitation was passed around one by one. The 7 of them were all dumbfounded. The last to receive the golden invitation, Nailin Hui, the college chief of Heavenly Jade Branch, suddenly snapped out of her daze and pressed the golden invitation firmly to her chest. Her usually calm and gentle voice suddenly rose. None of you fight with me. Mr. Yun Xiao must come to Heavenly Jade Branch. What a joke! Meng Baichuan was the first to explode. Young Master Yun Xiao is the #1 sword cultivator in the world. How could he not come to our Tianshu Institute? Only our Tianshu Institution's genius students have the qualifications to be taught by young Master Yun Xiao. That's enough. You guys have already snatched enough of the mentors just now. Our Mizar branch still has an empty spot. Young Master Yun Xiao should naturally come to our Mizar branch. The 6 branch deans, who were usually of virtue and prestige, almost started fighting over a golden invitation. Ahem! Su Yiluan suddenly coughed, interrupting their quarrel. His gaze was fixated on the golden invitation that he had just snatched from Nailin Hui's hands, and his brows were tightly knitted together, seeming to be happy, yet also resentful. Stop arguing, Su Yiluan said slowly as he handed over the golden note in his hand. Didn't you see the additional conditions attached to young Master Yun Zhao's receipt? Meng Baichuan and company were taken aback. Just now, they were too shocked that Yun Xiao was coming to Starry School. They didn't even listen to the conditions that the little boy told them. He didn't even look at the second half of the contents of the golden invitation. Chapter 12:16. What kind of joke is this? How can this be? No, I will never agree. How can Mr. Yun Xiao go there? Among the 6, Wei Tianming's eyes flickered and his face darkened. The Silver Feather Palace guest house where Di Mingju stayed was not far from Starry School. But after Mu Yin left the yard, she realized that it was not easy to return to Yawang Branch, because Starry School was too big. Between schools, they usually used flying magical equipment as a means of transportation. If she only relied on her 2 legs, she would need at least 5 days to return to Yawang Branch, even if she exhausted all her spiritual power. Mu Yin had no choice but to ask a random girl for directions. She was dressed as a man at the moment. Her face was like jade, red lips, white teeth, and unparalleled elegance. Asked by her, the girl blushed, her eyes full of shyness and excitement. This is where Starry School's outer yard students live. If you want to return to the inner yard, you can go to the northernmost side. You can take the flying boat there, but it will cost more crystals. As the girl spoke, she raised her head and looked at her bravely. Mister, do you need me to lead the way? No need. Thank you. Mu Yin smiled and took out a talisman, giving it to her. This is your reward. After that, without waiting for the girl to react, Mu Yin had already leaped and flew more than 10 meters away. The girl stared blankly at her back, then at the talisman in her hand. Then, her eyes widened. On the talisman, there was a special Guqin mark. The girl liked to stroll around Tingguang ruins, so she recognized it at a glance. This was a mark that only the mutated talisman sold by Lousy World's Best Shop had. The mutated talisman sold by Lousy World's Best Shop cost more than 1,000 crystals each. Moreover, there was a price but no supply. Normally, one could not even get one even if they queued up. But now, the mister only asked for directions, and he actually gave her a mutated talisman. The girl kept the talisman carefully, but could not help but look at the figure in front of her with blurred eyes. That young master was so handsome and had a peerless appearance. Just which immortal figure in the inner courtyard was he? Why had she never heard of such a person in Starry School? Mu Yen hurried all the way to the north, and soon saw the place where she could take the flying boat according to the little girl. However, before she could get close, she realized that there was a group of people pushing and shoving each other in the square in front of her. Listen up, Lu Ruoxuan. Little Sister Ro, I will be under our protection in the future. Jiang Xinyu, I will make you pay for humiliating Little Sister Ro in the past. She did not expect to hear the disgusting name Lu Ruoxuan the moment she returned to Starry School. Mu Yen frowns, but she doesn't step forward. Instead, she leaps onto an ancient tree not far from them. The ancient tree was at the very center of the square, and its trunk required more than 10 people holding hands to encircle it. The group of people below were quarreling under the shade of the ancient tree. But Mayan jumps up the ancient tree in broad daylight, and no one at the bottom notices. Mu Yen lazily finds the largest branch and leans against it, lowering her head to look down. Both sides were wearing the uniform of the Starry School's outer house. Chapter 12:17. Of the two groups below, the one on the left was a group of young male cultivators. They wore white clothing with the symbol of Alioth branch embroidered on their chests. Clearly, these were the students of Alioth branch's outer division. The other group was female cultivators led by Jiang Xinyu. Most of them were female disciples of mountain breaking sect. They were obviously beautiful and charming women, but they were wearing gray and ugly clothes. Embroidered on their chests was actually the symbol of Yao Guang branch. She didn't think that Yao Guang branch, whose inner division was as shabby as a haunted house, actually had an outer division. Jiang Xinyu cut a sorry figure right now. Her clothes were drenched. Her hair was a mess. There was even a scar on her left cheek. But her face didn't show any signs of retreating. She scolded fiercely. You bastards, relying on your family's wealth. It's not enough that you pushed us to the deserted Yao Guang branch. You still come to bully us every day. A bunch of men bullying women. You're all shameless. The leader of the Alioth branch's outer division was a little fatty with a shiny face. Hearing that, he sneered. Do you know why I sent you all to Yao Guang branch? That's because you're all honey mouths and daggers in your bellies. Evil women with hearts of snakes and scorpions. Shang, or Mimi, already told me who bullied her. Now, I've already recognized Shang, as my sworn sister. The grievances she suffered. Of course, I'll get them back for her. Jiang Xinyu trembled in anger, screaming at the top of her lungs. Lu Ruoxuan, that woman is clearly one thing on the surface and another, seducing men everywhere. Just how stupid are you men to be bewitched by her? Shut up. The person beside the little fatty stepped forward, fiercely slapping Jiang Xinyu's face. Shang, or Mimi, is so pure and kind. What right do you evil women have to say that about her? Jiang Xinyu stumbled and fell to the ground. Her beautiful face instantly swelled up, and there was even a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. She raised her head, glaring fiercely at the group of men. Tears swirled in her eyes, but stubbornly refused to fall. The people from the mountain-breaking sect hurriedly rushed over to help Jiang Xinyu up. At the same time, they complained to the little fatty and the rest. We are speaking the truth. That Lu Ruoxuan is not a good person. Everyone who just entered the Starry School knows how bad her reputation is. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask. Another person looked at their ferocious appearance, coupled with the pain in his body, and could not help but cry. Even if we really hate Lu Ruoxuan, we have not done anything excessive. You are a group of men. Why are you beating us? Fatty spat a mouthful of phlegm on the crying woman. Bitch, shut up. You're about to die, yet you're still quibbling. For someone as kind as little Sister Ro, if it wasn't because you guys had wronged her, why would she complain about you guys? Boss, I've said it before. These women are simply vicious and hopeless. Standing beside the fatty was a wretched man with shifty eyes. He licked his lips as his lustful gaze swept past Jiang Xinyu and the rest's exquisite bodies that had been splashed with water. We still need to teach them a lesson so that they know where they are wrong. Chapter 12:18. However, he did not agree immediately. Instead, he frowned and said, "This is the Starry School after all. If we go overboard, will we be punished by the dean?" "Ha, boss, you forgot that they are from the Alcade branch now." The perverted man laughed. "The Alcade branch doesn't even have a teacher, let alone a dean. Even if they want to complain, there's no way out." Another man beside him also had a fiery gaze. Panting, he said, "Boss, I think Rat is right. Haven't they been slandering Sister Ro for flirting with men? When they become playthings under our crotch, what right do they have to scold little Sister Ro then? Yes, this way, we can take revenge for Sister Roller. Even if Sister Ro finds out and thinks that we are too cruel, at least we will get justice for her." Following his subordinate's persuasion, the fat man's evil gaze landed on Jiang Xinyu's beautiful face. An excited smile slowly appeared on his face. "All right, we will do as you say. This bitch who bullied Sister Ro, the most will be taught a lesson by me personally. Boss, if you do it personally, you will definitely be able to teach this bitch a lesson. Ha! Then we will not hold back on the rest. This place is remote, so not many people come here. It's just nice that I haven't tried it before." A few men walked towards Jiang Xinyu's group with fiery eyes and perverted smiles. Jiang Xinyu and the others were all young girls. The oldest among them was not even 30 years old. In the cultivation continent, where even mortals could reach 200 years old, 30 years old was considered a naive young girl. At first, they did not realize what the fat man and the others wanted to do. When they saw them approaching with malicious intentions, and some of them even took off their clothes, they all turned pale and revealed frightened expressions. "You don't do anything rash." Jiang Xinyu's body trembled. She tried her best to retreat, but she could not muster any strength in her legs. "This is the Starry School. I am the daughter of the Mountain Breaking Clan's peak leader. You can't— Haha, Mountain Breaking Clan, what kind of small clan is that? Can it be compared to our boss's family? Mountain Breaking Sect, don't tell me all their mountains are broken? No wonder the people who come out are all vicious whores who can't be seen in public. I think you might as well take the initiative to serve us. If you serve us well, I might even bring you back and raise you as a cultivation vessel." The girls turned around in fear and wanted to escape, but they were grabbed by the hair and dragged back. Then they started to tear off their clothes. Jiang Xinyu screamed and waved her hands desperately, but she was pressed to the ground by Fatty. He raised his hand and gave her a slap. "Smelly whore, how dare you bully little Sister Gina? This is your fate." Jiang Xinyu's face was filled with tears and despair. But more than that, it was hatred. However, just when she thought that she was going to be consigned to eternal damnation, a seven-colored ray of light suddenly flashed in the sky and struck the ground. Ah! Ah! Several wails came from the mouths of the male Xiao from the outer yard of Yuheng. Fatty, who was on top of Jiang Xinyu, was in an even worse state. Chapter 12:19. Blood splatters everywhere, and with just a slight movement, you can see the thick fat sticking to the blood and rolling. Jiang Xinyu feels nauseous inside and promptly pushes him away. She stands up, but finds that the other people who bullied the Yao Guang Outer Court's female cultivators are all riddled with scars, lying in a pool of blood and wailing, unable to get up for a long time. Jiang Xinyu and the other apprentice sisters quickly gather together, grabbing their clothes and shivering, looking around. The fatty, who has reacted, takes out an elixir and swallows it, then looks in the direction of the treetop. "Who? Which bastard dares to sneak up on me? Do you know who I am? Why don't you tell me who you are?" The voice that's neither male nor female is like gold and jade striking each other, but it's full of indifference. Everyone's line of sight suddenly turns towards the direction of the voice. The sunlight in the sky sprinkles down through the mottled shadows of the trees, the light and shadow flickering. shrouding the treetop in shadows. But at this moment, they can finally vaguely see the figure at the top of the tree. It's a slender teenager. His face couldn't be seen clearly, but just the outline gave people a dreamy sense of beauty. Jiang Xinyu raises her head in a daze and suddenly asks, Gongzi, did you save us? Can't say saved. Mine fiddles with a small bug on the tree trunk and says unhurriedly, I just can't bear to see some beasts that bully women. Hearing this, the fatty immediately flies into a rage. Who are you calling a beast? Oh, I was wrong. Mayan chuckles. You're not beasts. You're worse than beasts. You. The fatty climbs up from the ground, enduring the pain in his back. He pulls out the knife at his waist and roars. Smelly brat. If you have the ability, come down for me. This father will dismember your body into 10,000 pieces. Mine gently pushes away the small bug that has climbed to the top, letting it fall back to its original place. Then she leisurely sighs. Fine, I'll go down then. The fatty widens his eyes, watching the slender figure jump down from the top of the tall tree. But before he can clearly see who it is, the cold light, accompanied by the faintly discernible sound of the zither, fell like an inescapable net. When Fatty came back to his senses, he and his companion were already lying on the ground. Their clothes were torn to shreds, revealing their naked bodies. Jiang Xinyu and the others stared dumbfoundedly at the beautiful young man, who was walking back and forth while stepping on their white buttocks. Ah! Some of the shy people had already covered their faces, not daring to look again. Jiang Xinyu, on the other hand, was lost in thought as she stared at the youth's incomparably handsome face. Her eyes went from perplexed to dazed, then from dazed to infatuation. Muyin slowly steps on a fatty's back and looks at his lackluster body in disgust. There was a big cross next to the idea of entering the painting. Then he kicked the fatty's head. The people from the Alcade outer yard will be under my protection in the future. If you dare to touch them again. Chapter 1220. Hearing the fatty's threat, Jiang Xinyu and the others reveal a frightened expression. They can already imagine how the fatty surnamed Zheng will torture the people of Yaoguang branch after this youngster leaves. Ah, the Zheng family of giant holy city. It's really quite famous. The fatty is immensely proud of himself. It's good that you're scared. If you're scared, then immediately release this little lord, kneel down, and kowtow to me to admit your mistake. Mayan slowly shakes her head and sighs. Young Master Zheng is so famous. If the people of Giant Holy City and the Zheng family knew that young Master Zheng was born with erectile dysfunction, how would they feel? Hearing this, the fatty's expression suddenly stiffens. What nonsense are you talking about? As soon as the conversation between the two comes out, everyone present, including the fatty's little brothers, look at them in shock. Just now, when the fatty wanted to bully Jiang Xinyu, it was really an act. How could it be erectile dysfunction? But if this youngster was lying, how could the fatty's reaction be so big? Mine doesn't care about the fatty's flustered and exasperated struggle. She slightly raises her eyebrows. What if I say that I can cure your erectile dysfunction? The fatty suddenly becomes speechless. His pair of small eyes stare unblinkingly, and the expression on his face is ever-changing. After a long time, he says in a mosquito-like voice, You don't lie to me? It can't be cured. Mine sneers and doesn't talk nonsense with him at all. Instead, she takes out several silver needles from her fingers and inserts them into several acupuncture points on his shoulders and back. At the same time, she also feeds him a pill. Ugh. What do you want me to eat? Do you want a poison? Ah. The fatty's expression is suddenly ever-changing. One moment it's red and blurred. The next moment it's blue and purple in shock. After a moment, he suddenly climbs up from the ground, not forgetting to grab his clothes to cover his lower body. His eyes stare at Mayan in shock. He no longer cares about shame and hatred, stumbling over his words. You can really cure me. Mayan takes 2 steps back and casually finds a stone to sit on. At the same time, she looks at the fatty's little brothers in disgust. Why don't you quickly put on your clothes? Your figures are so bad it's really an eyesore. She didn't even have the interest to paint. The fat lackeys were filled with grief and indignation. Bastard, it was you who stripped us naked. No, it was you who cut us naked. Feeling wronged, they retrieved their tattered clothes and wrapped them around their bodies. Fatty doesn't care about what his little brothers are thinking. He just stares straight at Mu Yin. Just now, when Mu Yin was feeding him medicine and giving him acupuncture, he felt that his lifeblood, which had never had a trace of masculinity, suddenly had a reaction. Although it was only for a moment. It was the only hope for Fatty, who had lost all hope. Mu Yin said with a smile that was not a smile, "You want me to treat you?" Fatty nodded as if he was pounding garlic. However, Mu Yin's eyes turned cold as she said, "I just heard you say that you are Lu Ruoxuan's god-brother." Fatty was stunned for a moment, then nodded his head doubtfully. Mu Yin faintly smiles, unhurriedly saying, "Then I'm really sorry. I'm not interested in helping you treat your illness. Because in the entire academy, I hate Lu Ruoxuan the most." Everyone present was taken aback. After that, Zhang Xinyu and her fellow disciples couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chapter 12:21. Mu Yin doesn't wait for him to finish and walks away. "Then you should find your pure and kind little sister to treat her." "Don't." The fatty remembers the pain and despair that has troubled him for more than 20 years. How could he care about his new, adopted sister? He wails and pounces to hug Mu Yin's thigh. "Big brother, hero, no, boss, you are my boss. How can a little sister be more important than you? You said you hate Lu Ruoxuan, then little brother must also hate Lu Ruoxuan. Don't worry, when I see Lu Ruoxuan in the future, I will definitely slap her." Mu Yin avoids the fatty in disgust and sits back on the stone. "I can treat your illness. But in the future, the people of Yao Guang Outer Court." "Boss, don't worry. The person you protect is the person your little brother will protect. In the future, whoever dares to touch the people of Yao Guang Outer Court will have to ask if I, Zheng Jiabao, agree or not." The fatty smiles flatteringly, the fat on his face almost piling up together. His expression is as sincere as it can be. The fatty's little brothers turn their heads, indignant and ashamed, unable to look. Mu Yin looks at them with a smile, takes out a bottle of elixir, and throws it to Zheng Jiabao. "Take one at noon every day. After taking it, circulate your spiritual power. The effect will condense spiritual power to attack your blocked meridians. The process will be very painful. I can bear it." The fatty looks at the medicine in her hand, his eyes burning. He can't wait to rush over and snatch it, but when he thinks of the young man's crushing force, he naturally doesn't dare to act rashly. As long as it can be cured, I can bear any pain. Mu Yin then throws the elixir to him. "After taking the medicine for a month, your illness will be cured. If there is a break for a day, I can't guarantee that your illness will not be cured. It won't break, even if I die." The fatty carefully puts the medicine away, his eyes full of hope. Mu Yin smiles treacherously. The fatty's illness is actually not serious. If she uses the sound of the zither to treat it, it will only take half an hour to immediately recover. But thinking of the disgusting behavior of the fatty and his men, Mu Yin intends to let him suffer for another month. "There's one more thing. Don't say I didn't remind you." The smile on Mu Yin's mouth becomes brighter and more beautiful, but it makes Fatty's back go cold. "I can cure your illness so naturally. I can also beat you back to your original form in an instant. If you dare to go against me behind my back, Before she could finish her words, Fatty's entire body trembled. He hurriedly pointed to the heavens and swore, "Boss, don't worry. We'll definitely listen to you obediently and follow your orders." Mu Yin dusts off the dust on her clothes and stands up. Fatty stood up with a fawning look on his face, but because he pulled the wound on his back, he let out a blood-curdling scream. Fatty's underlings were all riddled with scars, suffering unspeakably. However, Mu Yin did not have the slightest bit of sympathy. These people's actions of wanting to humiliate women were truly too despicable. She did not punish them because there was a school supervisor in the Starry School. If they hurt someone for no reason, they would be punished and the rest of the Xiaoyao clan would be implicated. It was also because she knew that these wounds were caused by her 7 absolute swords, and she had also sprinkled the mutated golden silkworm's child goo on the wounds. Chapter 12:22. If these people turn over a new leaf and no longer have any evil thoughts, their wounds will naturally heal after a month. On the contrary, this fatty Zheng Jiabao looks like a flamboyant bully, but in fact, he's just a spoiled brat. The wound on his back is also very deep. Even after taking medicine, it's still lacerated and dripping with blood. Mu Yin thinks for a moment, then takes out a few talismans and throws them to him. Use these talismans to treat the wound on your back. Thank you, boss. The fatty receives them in fear and trepidation. Although he doesn't care about third-grade talismans, after all, the elixirs on him are much more precious than low-level talismans. But he didn't expect that Mu Yin would actually care about his injuries. He can't help but have a trace of true affection for Mu Yin. Boss, if you have any instructions, just say it. The fatty puts away the talisman. Although the talisman is useless, the boss's intention is still important. If this lowly one can do it, I will definitely do it for you. Mu Yin touches her chin. Can I rent a flying boat here? Yes, boss, please wait. This lowly one will go and get a flying boat for you. The fatty excitedly leaves, and at the same time, he also drives away his group of little brothers. When he comes back, he's the only one left. Because of the injury on his back, his complexion is somewhat pale, and his forehead is still oozing with sweat. But in front of Mu Yin, he doesn't complain at all. Boss, the flying boat has already been prepared for you, and I've already paid for it. Boss, you can go wherever you want to go. Mu Yin smiles and turns to leave. The fatty wants to say something but hesitates, not daring to speak. In the end, it's Jiang Xinyu who stops Mu Yin. Gongzi, please wait. Mu Yan's heart thumps, and she turns around. She thinks, could it be that Jiang Xinyu recognized me? It shouldn't be. When she was disguised as a man, in order to smoothly escape from that courtyard, she specially made some changes to her face. She even deliberately lowered her voice a little. Although the outline looks similar, people who see her would never think of her as Mu Yin. When she turns around, she sees Jiang Xinyu blushing, looking at her with shyness and timidity. Noticing that she was looking over, Jiang Xinyu's face turned even redder. Her eyes were like ripples of water, as though they contained boundless emotions. Young master, Xinyu will never forget your kindness of saving my life. Would young master please tell me your name, so that Xian you can repay you in the future? When Mu Yin sees Jiang Xinyu's familiar appearance, the corner of her mouth can't help but twitch. It seemed that this girl had met a man who looked passable and saved her, so she wanted to repay him with her body. For a while, Mayan feels remorseful for mocking little martial uncle. Now that the tables had turned, it was her turn. Mu Yin smiled awkwardly and said, "There's no need. I've said it before, I'm not trying to save you. I just can't stand such behavior." After saying that, she was about to run away. At this time, Jiang Xinyu's speed was surprisingly fast. She suddenly rushed over and grabbed her sleeve. Her originally bashful face was now wet with tears. "Gongzi, are you looking down on us people in the outer court? Young master, you are so powerful. You must be a genius of the Tianshu Institute, right? You are so aloof and remote. Lowly people like us are naturally not worthy of you, Gongzi." Listening to her mushy words, Mu Yan's whole body is about to explode. She really wants to shake the woman in front of her to wake up. Chapter 12:23. Why the hell did she become like this now? Mu Yan didn't know that Jiang Xinyu hated Lu Ruoxuan, so she paid special attention to Lu Ruoxuan's words and actions. Jiang Xinyu hated Lu Ruoxuan's innocent look, but those men fell for Lu Ruoxuan's tricks. Jiang Xinyu hated Lu Ruoxuan to the core. So, this time, Jiang Xinyu finally met the man she liked, so she suppressed her nature and imitated Lu Ruoxuan's pitiful appearance, hoping to get Mu Yan's favor. Master, Sinyu doesn't ask for more. I only hope that you can tell me your name. Jiang Sinyu looked at Mu Yan with a pair of tearful eyes, but the hand that grabbed her sleeves was especially tight. The fatty at the side couldn't help but say, Boss, this little one also wants to ask who you are. Mu Yan pressed the throbbing blue veins on her forehead and finally squeezed out a few words from her teeth. My name is Yi Liangchen. After that, Mu Yan quickly escaped from the devil's clutches while Jiang Sinyu was in a daze after hearing the name and jumped towards the direction of the flying ship. Yi Liangchen. The fatty's small eyes were shining. Boss, even your name is so domineering. Saying that, he took out the elixir in his arms, and his face was full of hope. The elixir that boss gave me must be effective. It must be effective. Jiang Sinyu frowned and muttered to herself, Yi Liangchen. Yi Liangchen. Why did she feel that this name was somewhat familiar? When Mu Yin returned to the Yaoguang branch, the other 6 people of the Xiaoyao sect were anxious. The irascible Lung Yuma had already pulled out her long sword and said with a stern face, the disappearance of little junior sister must be related to those bitches. If it's not Ouyang Mingzhu, then it's that Lu Ruoxuan or the trash of the Yinyu Palace. As long as we kill our way through the courtyards one by one, we will definitely be able to save little junior sister. Luo Yu raised her hands in agreement. Let's go now. Ling Yuxing's hands were slightly trembling, and his eyes were full of guilt and regret. If it wasn't for me, little junior sister wouldn't have followed us to this desolate Yaoguang branch, and she wouldn't have gone missing. If there's really someone who dares to harm little junior sister, I'll definitely tear them to shreds. Even eldest brother Yun Ruhan, who was usually the most composed, could not remain calm. No matter what, we have to go to the school of the Emperor Star to demand an explanation. Junior sister went missing in the academy. They have to give us an explanation. The gentle smile on Chu Moli's face disappeared. Heh, my Xiao Yao sect doesn't want to cause trouble, but it's not that we're afraid of trouble. Who dares to touch the people of the Xiao Yao sect? Sorry to interrupt you. The sound of knocking on the door and a clear and melodious voice suddenly interrupted their conversation. The 6 of them turned their heads in unison and saw a handsome young man with picturesque features standing at the door. I think I heard 6 senior sisters' voice just now. Was it just my imagination? Luo Yu scratched her head. Lung Yuma looked at the youth in front of her warily. Who are you? Why are you here? The others also revealed suspicious expressions, and they even began to circulate the spiritual energy within their bodies. Everyone thought of the same thing. Could this young man who suddenly appeared be the culprit behind their little junior sister's disappearance? Only Chu Moli was stunned for a moment. A trace of understanding slowly flashed across his eyes, and the corners of his mouth slowly hooked up into a faint smile. Chapter 1224. I'm Yi Liangchen. I'm here to join the Alcade branch. I wonder if the seniors here will welcome me. As soon as he said that, the 5 of them widened their eyes. Yi Liangchen. In this world, only people from the Xiao Yao school knew who Yi Liangchen was. The young man in front of them had a familiar face. Now that he said the name Yi Liangchen, his identity was obvious. Luo Yu cheered and pounced on him. 6 senior sister, I thought I heard your voice just now. Junior sister, where have you been these few days? Lung Yuma also excitedly rushed over and hugged her. He only left a huge Chinquan bag outside the branch and left. We thought this Alcade branch was really haunted. Yun Ruhan also sighed. Then, Xiao Wu felt that he got you into trouble and even went to argue with Ouyang Qing. In the end, they parted on bad terms and there was no news of you at all. Ling Yuxing's expression was slightly unnatural. He bit his lips and said, Junior sister, are you hurt? Feeling the concern of her seniors, Mu Yin smiled and shook her head. Look, I'm fine. Where have you been these few days? Mu Yin thought for a while and said, I spent some time to comfort someone's resentful husband. Everyone. Mu Yin took a shower and changed back into her female clothes. She felt refreshed. However, looking at the dirty and barren Alcade branch, she still felt a headache. Lung Yuma looked like she had nothing to live for. We spent 2 days, and I'm so tired that I can't even straighten my back. However, we only managed to clean this side hall. I swear, I'll never clean again. Since there are only 7 of us, we'll just stay in this side hall. Even Yun Ruhan could not help but sigh. Junior sister, you bought so many things, but you can't even fill this side hall. I also feel that there's no need to clean the remaining places. I really don't know how luxurious the Starry School must be to waste such a big alcade branch. Hearing this, Mu Yin could not help but look forward. The current alcade branch was indeed in ruins, and it was extremely desolate. However, looking at the ruins, one could imagine how glorious and lively the alcade branch used to be. Why did the alcade branch become like this? Why was there not a single student in the alcade branch? Luo Yu's face was bitter, and she said sorrowfully, "No, big senior brother, little senior sister, I don't want to live in such a haunted house. If I only have to clean a side hall, I won't even dare to step out of the hall anymore." Sob, sob, sob. Don't you feel that there was a crying sound from the main hall at night? Look at you. Lung Yuma slapped the back of Luo Yu's head. As a man, how can you be afraid of ghosts? You are even worse than a woman like me. Luo Yu cast a sidelong glance at her. Fourth apprentice sister, can you be considered a woman? Lung Yuma choked for a moment. Then junior sister isn't afraid. Luo Yu's gaze became even more distant. Sixth senior sister, he's so valiant that he can't even be considered human. Mu Yin was speechless. Why did she get shot, even though she was lying down? Yun Ruhan frowned and said, Xiao Qi is right. It's not reasonable for the entire branch to be abandoned. There's a training field in the alcade branch and many suitable places to train. Chapter 1225. When I was in the main hall a few days ago, I felt a very strong spiritual power. There should be a very precious spiritual vein under the ground. It would be a pity to leave it empty. But with just the 7 of them, if they wanted to clear out such a large branch, it was also a fantasy. Everyone sighed together. Just then, Mu Yan's expression suddenly changed. She stared at the gate of the Yaoguang branch. Someone is coming. But a moment later, a flying boat landed at the gate of the Yaoguang branch. A few young girls stuck their heads out of the door and looked around. These people were wearing beige dresses, with the symbol of the Fecta inner branch on their chests. Yun Ruhan stepped forward and said, "What can I do for you?" The girls looked at each other and finally pushed a person out. "Excuse me, is this the Yaoguang branch's inner branch?" Yun Ruhan nodded. "Yes. What can I do for you?" Hearing Yun Ruhan's answer, the girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she hurriedly rushed into the courtyard and looked inside. When they saw the scene inside the Yaoguang branch, the girls almost fainted with heartache. Why is this place so shabby and dirty? Does the school want the young master to live in such a place? The young master is so noble and unparalleled. How can such a shabby place be worthy of him? Yes, if the young master leaves our school because of this shabby place and goes to Fengtian or Longting. No. I will never accept such a result. If the young master really leaves, I will shed blood at the gate of this shabby branch and cry to the ground. Yun Ruhan was confused and couldn't help asking, "Girls, what are you doing here?" Unfortunately, the girls didn't answer him at all. Instead, they looked at him and Mu Yin and the others who came up behind them with picky, jealous, disgusted, and eager eyes. You are the 7 practitioners who entered the Yaoguang branch alone? This group of people is really lucky to be able to become the young master students. Boo-hoo! Why didn't I think of applying for the Yaoguang branch? If I could transfer from the Fecta branch to the Alcade branch, I would be the first to sign up. Yeah, don't mention it. I've already gone to my uncle to think of a way, but the Academy's rules state that once a branch has been determined, it cannot be changed. This group of country bumpkins actually benefited from it. The 7 people of the Xiao Yao sect, who were called country bumpkins, were dumbfounded. Luo Yu took a step forward and said, "What are you talking about? Why did you come to the Alcade branch?" The little girl who had just called him a bumpkin put her hands on her waist and said angrily, "Do you think we want to come to the Alcade branch? We're just afraid that if we don't come and tidy things up, what if the young master feels uncomfortable and runs away?" Young master? What young master? Luo Yu was even more confused. Just as the little girl was about to answer, another flying boat descended from the sky. This time, the people who came were not from the Fecta branch, but from the Migres branch. Moreover, not only were there women, but there were also many male cultivators. People from the Fecta branch. The leading male cultivator glanced at the girls and asked, "What are you doing here?" Chapter 1226. A group of grown men coming here to join in the fun. Humph, Gongzi is the cultivator we admire the most. This is the place where Gongzi will live in the future. We naturally have to come and take a look. Mayan's group of 7 look at each other and can't help but ask, "You mean our Yaoguang branch is going to have a very powerful person?" The male cultivator of Migres branch looks at them, his face full of envy. "You still don't know? Your Yaoguang branch will soon have its first new teacher in decades, and that teacher's identity." The male cultivator hasn't finished speaking when a whistling sound comes from the sky. A flying sword descended from the sky, and several practitioners jumped down from the flying sword. This time, there are only 3 cultivators, but they're wearing the silver-purple clothes of Tianshu as Ti Tut. Oh, even Tianshu Ti Tut has come. Gongzi's charm is really irresistible. By the time the 4th and 5th flying boats arrive, Mine's group of 7 are already completely numb. They hide in a corner, watching these normally aloof heavens pridelings puff and puff as they renovate the garden and clean up the debris. There are even people who move out expensive furniture from their own storage space to help them decorate the palaces. Lush green spirit grasses are planted on the originally withered and barren fields. TSK, just the value of those spirit grasses, they don't know how to measure it. Mayan and the others were just worrying about how long it would take for the 7 of them to clean up such a large Yaoguang branch. But now, there are too many people coming to help. It only took them 1 day to make the entire Yaoguang branch look brand new. When it's time to clean up, they have to quarrel. "Hey, I was the one who snatched this palace first, and I'm responsible for cleaning it. Why did you come in to join in the fun? Pa, is your name written on the palace? Who said it's yours? Oh my, thinking that the bed that I clean might be the place Gongzi will sleep in the future. My heart is about to jump out of my throat. Ah, why did you come to clean the Yaoguang branch? Don't you always hate touching dirty things? You can't stand a little dust in the room." "Humph, I'm willing. As long as I can work for Gongzi, I'm willing to do it no matter how dirty or tiring it is. Say, if I carve my name on this training field, will the young master remember me? This training ground might be used by the young master in the future. You must wipe it clean." The 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect were sitting in a corner, eating grapes and chatting. They couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. This is the first time I've learned that there are people who fight for the job of hard labor. Who exactly is this new teacher of ours? Why are all the students in Starry School chasing after him so crazily? Could it be a nascent soul cultivator or even a tribulation cultivator on this continent? Humph, if he really is a senior at the Crossing Calamity stage, why would he come to our Alcade branch? Can't we go to Tianshu Courtyard? Among the 7 people, only Chu Moli had a pensive look on his face. He muttered in a low voice, "To be able to create such a grand occasion. 3rd senior brother, what are you talking about?" Luo Yu asked as she stuffed a grape into Chu Moli's mouth. Chapter 1227. 3rd senior brother is right. Therefore, when the new teacher arrives, we should focus on this point and have a better attitude. Even if he wants to slack off and cause trouble, He has to do it secretly. Chu Moli smiled and was about to speak. The female cultivators from the Fecta branch who had arrived first walked over. The leader was the young girl who asked the question at the beginning. She looked a little shy. When she arrived in front of Yun Ruhan, she handed over a Chinquan bag. Yun Ruhan took it confused. When she opened it, she was shocked. Although this was the lowest grade Chinquan bag, it still had a lot of space. This Cosmo sack was filled to the brim with crystals and medicinal pills. Why are you giving this to us? Yun Ruhan asked in surprise. Then she realized, you want us to give this to the new instructor? What a joke. Before the young girl could answer, the bad-tempered senior sister beside her said loudly, the young master doesn't care about these vulgar things. These things are for you. For us? The young girl blushed and looked at Yun Ruhan eagerly. There are many messenger paper cranes in this Chinquan bag. Can we trouble you to inform us if the young master comes? Ah! Yun Ruhan held the Chinquan bag in her hand. What ah? In the future, if there is any news of the young master in the Alcade branch, for example, if he is practicing swordsmanship or going out, you can inform us with the messenger paper cranes. In the future, there will be many benefits for you. Yun Ruhan waved her hands in fright. How can we do that? How can we reveal the whereabouts of the new instructor? But before he could finish speaking, Luo Yu and Lung Yumal rushed over and snatched the Chinquan bag from his hand. Luo Yu smiled cutely. Don't worry. In the future, if there is news of our new instructor, we will definitely inform you. Lung Yumal bumped into Yun Ruhan, who was about to speak, and quickly put the Chinquan bag into her pocket. TSK, the Xiaoyao sect was poor. Now that they finally had some income, it would be a waste not to take it. Wasn't it just the whereabouts of the new instructor? As long as there was money to be made, they wouldn't mind selling the new instructor's body, let alone his whereabouts. The people of the Fecta branch left with satisfaction, but their actions were seen by the people from the other branches. Following that, another group of people ran over and took out a bunch of treasures to bribe Mu Yan's group of 7. Sai, I don't know what kind of good karma you guys did in your past lives to actually become the young master's students. I'm warning you, these crystals are not only for you to inform us, but also for you to serve the young master well. Everything that young master wants, you have to buy the best. If you don't have enough crystal stones, you can ask us anytime. If the young master leaves because of your negligence, humph, just wait for your deaths. Only when the sun was about to set in the west, and the various branches were about to close their defensive formations, did these people reluctantly leave. We're rich. Lung Yuma counted the Chinquan bag and was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Haha, I don't know who this teacher is to be able to let us benefit so much. Chapter 1228. What's not good about it? Maybe our new mentor would be very happy to be worshipped like this. Don't you think so, sixth sister? Luo Yu giggled as she grabbed a piece of crystal and tossed it in the air. Mine was a little absent-minded. She heard Luo Yu's question, but she didn't hear clearly what she asked, so she casually replied, yes. But what if the new mentor gets angry? To be able to provoke so many girls, this new mentor is most likely a womanizer. He's not a good person in the first place. As Lung Yumo ridiculed, she couldn't help but rub Luo Yu's hair. Xiao Qi, you're still young. In the future, you mustn't learn from our new mentor. Luo Yu dodged Lung Yuma's hand, desperately protecting her hair. At the same time, her face was full of suspicion. If he really wasn't a good person, why would he be worshipped by so many people? Sixth sister, what do you think? Just what kind of divine being is our new mentor? Is he really not a good person like fourth sister said? From the beginning, Mine's mind had been turning a thought, so she had been absent-minded. Now that she heard Luo Yu ask her, she didn't listen carefully to what the question was, so she gave a perfunctory reply. Amen, he's not a good person. However, just as she finished speaking, a gentle and elegant male voice came from outside, carrying a trace of coldness. I'm not a good person? As soon as this voice rang in her ears, the dense fog that had been covering Mayan's heart seemed to have been torn apart by something, finally revealing her true face. Fuck! No wonder she felt that something was wrong from the beginning. No wonder she felt that the scene in front of her was familiar. In this Xiojin continent, between the heavens and the earth, who else could create such a magnificent scene and make thousands of people flock like mad? Was her brain soaked in water just now? She didn't think of it at all. Mine suddenly jumped up as if she was on fire, and she blurted out, "Young martial uncle." That's right. Who else could create such a magnificent scene, besides that mesmerizing young martial uncle of theirs? In this world, where else could there be a second Gongzi who could be so crazily sought after by young people? But when she turned around, there was still a glimmer of hope in her heart. In his heart, he thought that perhaps he was overthinking things. But when she turned her head and saw the incomparably elegant young master standing at the door, her heart sank with a chill. When the other 6 people, including Chu Moli, who had already guessed the truth, heard this voice, all of their bodies suddenly stiffened. Like puppets under someone's control, they twisted their heads and turned around to look. Little martial uncle, why are you here? Lung Yuma was so frightened that the Chinquan bag in her hands fell onto her feet, but she did not even dare to cry out in pain. He looked at Luo Yunxiao with a stiff expression and laughed dryly. Luo Yu was so scared that she quivered and hid behind Mu Yin, shivering. Yun Ruhan forced herself to calm down and forced a smile that was uglier than a crying face. Junior Aunt, we were talking about the new instructor? Ha, our Alcade school is so run down, and any instructor who would come here must be a nobody. Surely it can't be Junior Aunt, right? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.